Morning, Deb.
Good morning, Jen. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Are you surviving Ignite?
Yes, it's going well. It's almost, we have what, just 3 more days next week?
Yeah, I think it's going well. I'm not on every day, but I do try to pop in. You know how it is, but yeah, I think it's been going really well.
Yeah, I think so too. Other than some
Yeah.
of the technical challenges and stuff, but it's been going
Mm.
well. So coaches have
Yeah.
been doing a great job.
Are
So
you
it's you
guys,
and Nick today, or
pardon me?
is it you and Nick today teaching, or is it just
It's
you?
just me. Nick had reached out to me before and indicated that something had come up. So I'm just hoping somebody could kind of watch the chat and,
Sure. Yeah,
kind of
there's
thing.
usually a bunch of us on, so we'll make sure you're taken care of.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's really the negotiating piece. Are you guys going to do like a recap I mean, I apologize if you've already said this, a recap at the end of the facility, the faculty and what worked, what didn't, that whole kind of thing?
You mean more of like a evaluation?
Yeah, a little brainstorm after the fact.
I think we can for sure. Maybe that's
Yeah.
an email we send out after and get more feedback on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely have several people in my group that have been part of it, and they really like it a lot. I do sometimes they don't always have their participant guide and that kind of stuff. So, I have a bunch of Ignite books. I should just have given it to them. That would have been,
Well, it's all new. That's the only problem. The
I know,
2.0 is totally different. So
I know, and the participant guides are really good. So we'll figure
yeah,
that out.
usually Erin is the one who drops that into the chat for everybody once everybody kind of gets on. And
Oh,
then
okay.
it is all on our Facebook group as well.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm excited. I think it's been a great leverage piece, and I hope everybody is really liking it for sure.
Yes.
So I'll have the ability to screen share, right?
Oh yeah, yep, absolutely. So sometimes I like to get on a little early and do something fun. So that earlier this week, Bill won a book for Profit Share that's going to be in the mail today. So Bill, expect that in the next few days.
Thank you.
So anybody who is on, I'm going to do a little kind of trivia-ish game. So if you know the answers, either unmute yourself or put it in the chat as we get our attendance up here. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the 2019 profile of home buyers and sellers directly from NAR. So these stats are not stats that I am making up. They're coming from that profile. So here we go. I'm going to ask a couple questions and let's see who could get some of these close to right or right. So what is the percentage of buyers that have financed their home purchase? We talked about this the other day, actually. What is the percentage of buyers that use financing to purchase their homes?
Isn't it 80%?
Close. We got close. Any other guesses? Good morning, Linda. The question of the morning or right now is, what is the percentage of buyers that finance their purchases?
Oh my goodness.
We got 80 so far.
80?
That's a guess.
That's a guess. What is the percentage that,
Anyone else want to guess? Please throw it in the chat or unmute.
I'm gonna say, yeah, like 92%. High.
All right, so we're a little high and we're a little low. So Bill, you're low. Linda, you're high. Somewhere in between there. What is the percentage of buyers that use financing to purchase their home? All right, time's up. The answer is 86%. 86% of buyers use financing to purchase their homes. All right, next question. Bill, you got a point for that. We're going to add up points here, okay? All right, so next question is, what is the percentage of sellers that contact one agent before hiring someone to list their house?
The majority of them.
100.
Percentage.
83.
Very close, Eric. So what is the percentage?
86.
55.
Little high.
55.
No, little low.
95.
That's high. All right, so Eric, you get a point for this because you were the closest. It's 75%.
Wow.
75% of sellers contact one agent before selling their house with them. All right, let's get another question here.
Did I just stumble into a trivia match?
Yes, you did. And
Sweet.
you got a point for it so far. So we got a
Nice.
couple more minutes. I'm going to ask a couple more questions.
I won't answer.
What is the percentage of home sellers that worked with a real estate agent to sell their house? The percentage of home sellers that worked with a real estate agent to sell their house.
85.
Ooh, very close. Anyone could get
86.
closer than that.
88.
Oh, very close.
87.
91.
Who said 89?
Oh,
89. Whoever that was, you get a point. So I think we got 3 points, 1 point. All right, so we have time for a couple more questions. Let's see, it's anyone's game here. All right, let's go with a satisfaction question. What is the percentage of sellers that were very satisfied with the selling process?
64.
Wow, very close. I'm going to give a couple more seconds for anyone else to guess.
61.
65.
Who said 65?
I did.
All right, it was 66. Linda, you got a point. So we got 4 points across the board. Everyone has one. Last question. I think I have time for one more. Here we go. All right, let me find a good one here. I got to find a good one.
Linda's Price is writing me.
She
Yeah,
is.
she
Totally
is.
is.
$1. $1.
$1 more.
Well, actually, a little secret here. Years ago, I'm going to age myself. I was on The Price is Right.
Oh, hi.
Those showcases.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. I was on. I didn't get on as a contestant, but Connor, who taught the other day, was on and won both showcases as well.
Oh,
Oh my
wow.
God.
I have to talk to him.
Yes.
We should have a throwdown.
All right, here's the last question. Who's going to get it? You ready? Closest answer wins. What percentage of non-home owners believe home ownership is a good financial decision?
73%.
84%.
90.
100.
93%.
My closest so far. Any other guesses?
93%.
Too high.
Yeah.
90.
High.
I'm going to go
80.
58.
87%.
Nope.
72%.
60?
It is 78% of non-home owners believe home ownership is a good financial decision. Bill, I think you are the winner of our game this morning.
Hey, Bill.
Someone give him a high five and a pride, not prize. Good job. All right, so
That was great,
honestly,
everyone.
that's such a good stat to really end this on, because that's substantial. 78% of people who are renting think it's actually a good idea to buy. Why aren't we talking to them?
So if any of your friends are renting, call
No, right? That's a good way to end this trivia. And congratulations to Bill. You have won our trivia game this morning. I have no prize for you because I'm already sending you a book.
them.
Unless you want
$100,000.
two. You want two? You could give it away. All right. All right, Deborah. It is 9 o'clock. It is about that time to get started. We're negotiating the deal today, which is probably one of my favorite topics.
Absolutely.
And I'm probably going to chime in a little bit if you're okay with that.
Oh, love it. Absolutely.
All right.
So good morning, everyone. I'm just getting my screen up and running. I hope everyone can see it. Oops.
Yep.
Nope, that's not working. Let's start from the beginning. Always fun getting going here, right? So good morning. Deb Hayes here. I'm the productivity coach over at Keller Williams, Merrimack Valley in Westford, Massachusetts. A little bit about me really quick. I've been in the real estate business for over 25 years. I've been with Keller Williams for about 7 years after being with another company for many. 3 years ago, I moved into the productivity coaching position through the pressure from my OP, and it's worked out really well. And I work with, really all of the agents from brand new up to about maybe, like 4 or 5 in a volume, 4 or 5 million in volume. So yeah, today we're talking about negotiating the deal, which, as we know, is the really, I think, most interesting part of the business, actually. And let's be real, it's not at the offer stage. It's all the time. We want to make sure that we start our process of negotiating really right in the beginning. We want to make sure we have our tools in hand at all time to be the best negotiators that we can be. Who loves negotiating? Right, absolutely. Where else do we negotiate during the day besides real estate? Any comments on that?
Every day, all day.
With our kids,
Yeah.
with our significant other, with
Yeah,
everyone.
absolutely. Now, I'm going to move my little thing here. So how can your ability to negotiate affect the outcome of a deal? What are some of the ways you do negotiate in everyday life? Who has a teenager? Who has a 3-year-old, right? And what are the skills that great negotiators possess? And, what's the most important thing in negotiating? It's questions, This little chart here is kind of interesting. We're always talking about negotiating with buyers and sellers. That's what we do, right? So you have your buyer, you have your buyer agent, then you have your seller agent, and goes up to the seller. Buyers and sellers generally never meet. The two shall never meet. And why is that? Does anybody have any ideas on that? Any thoughts?
That's because both sides are emotional, and they are not able to be objective and to talk about the property, because obviously the buyer is going to be trying to find something to negotiate the price down, and seller is going to say, no, this is new, this is beautiful, this is my palace, how dare you, all that.
Right. Well, okay, that's absolutely positively that's the main reason, because buyers and sellers, first of all, they don't do it. They don't do negotiating. They don't do buying and selling homes every day of the week. That's why they want to hire a trusted professional called the real estate agent that's going to help them get through the process. And we also know that if a buyer and a seller get together, they may try to put together a little scheme that might not be in their either one of them's best interest. They might, they don't know the process of selling a home or buying a home, and they might try to put together a little deal that's just not going to work for anybody. So that is our proposition. That's our value, bringing people together and, making sure that at the end of the day, it gets to where we want to be. So I'm just going to move along. I don't know how everybody likes to do it. You've been in Ignite. You're going to hear a lot of the same strategies and a lot of the same words. And this is why we're here, because repetitive learning always helps you listen at a higher level, because you know your stuff. And eventually, no matter how long you're in this business, you'll always be learning new stuff. So what are some negotiating issues that people come across? And we will get to them, but just off the top of your head, you've been in Ignite for a while. What are some of the things that come up in negotiating? Like, what do you guys hear out there in the world?
The main is price, and I think the second one could be conditions, as far as inspection and closing date. And I can only close on this date because I'm in the lease. I can only close in this date because I have to sell my house. So these are what I've seen the most.
Yeah. Anybody else have any ideas on negotiating issues? Thank you for that.
Sometimes they want to negotiate items within the house.
Oh, yeah, personal property, Adele, that's always a
Right.
fun one. And I have,
Yeah.
and I'm sure all the experienced agents here have personal thoughts on personal items. What other things? Thank you, Adele.
What about the move out date? The date
Yeah.
the seller's gonna move out?
Dates, Joyce, good one. Yeah, it's what we call price and terms. You know, I think a lot of times when people really get into the real estate deal, they think it's all about price. Oh, the price, the price, the price. And it's
No.
really not just the price. And it's not the cute letter from the people and we want to pick them, you know, which we all know is going to turn into fair housing issues. You know, we're professionals and we're going to talk about price and terms. Let's, you know, right? Price and terms. Does anybody, I don't know if anybody has their participant guide, but you know, certainly there's some on page 5 of the participant guide, there's some more specific terms. Yes, price is always the best price for the seller and what the buyer is willing to pay. And it really, always the goal is to have a win-win situation. If you've got something that is completely out of reach for everybody, it's never going to work. You know, your best offers and your best deals come from the best good faith presentations, and that's what you'll be focused on, whether you're working with the buyer or you're working with the seller. So we talked about some of the things, the price, the timing. We also have some negotiating points in the terms we might want to discuss a little bit is closing costs. Now it's difficult. We've been talking about this throughout the program where the market is so strong that it's very difficult to negotiate closing cost at some point. We all know that real estate comes and goes. Real estate never goes anywhere, but the rhythms of the markets can change. So at some point that will come back around where closing cost will be negotiated in, and there's several different ways that you can target that. Has anybody had negotiations with closing costs recently? Ooh, that sounds nice. Any closing cost? Has anybody negotiated closing costs of late in the last 6 months?
Hi, Deborah. I have, but of course, not been successful. Even as we've just discussed, obviously based on the current market that we're in. I have not been successful, and let me not say that. I've been successful with one, but I have two that I was not successful with. They're not willing to pay closing costs.
Yeah, it's a tough one. As we move forward, and if we do see a shift in the market, we may see that rise back in. So we'll keep an eye on it. Closing date is always something that we must focus on. And we did talk a little bit yesterday on, finding out what the seller's closing dates are all about and what works for them and what works for the buyer. One thing the buyers do have to their advantage right now, a lot of times, is they have time. They may have time. They may be renting. They may be living with family. They may have sold their house and they're living, in a rental. If you can give a seller some time, you can maybe get a deal over somebody that doesn't have time. So that's—
Can I chime in for 1 second?
You may.
I just wanted to ask, and I don't know who it was that just said that she was unsuccessful with a couple of adding in closing cost in the deal, but I'd like to ask a little more questions around that and kind of see what happened and see if we could have a quick conversation around it. Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Who was that said their transactions didn't work with closing costs?
That was me, Suzette.
Hi, Suzette. So tell me a little bit about that. What happened, and were there multiple offers? Tell us a little bit about it.
There was. One particular situation, they had, the seller said, the listing agent stated they had 15 offers. And of course, the seller was not interested in any closing cost credit their best offer came back. Of course, they were conventional. They weren't looking for closing costs. They had a local lender. So there were other things besides just the closing cost when I spoke with her. But, you know, basically she said my seller was just not interested in closing costs. And I'm happy that you asked the question, because that was going to be my next question is, even in a market like this, then how can we still, even if we're asking for closing cost credit, how can we still present a strong offer and negotiate for our buyers?
Suzette, those are amazing questions. And that is exactly what this session is all about, is to come up with those strategies with you. And I wanted to ask those questions so that way we had a little more clarity around what we could do differently next time. And we're going to be talking about that, or Deb's going to be talking about that as she goes along today. But, you know, the whole point of this is it's not about one term or one price in the contract. Especially right now in today's market, we need to put our buyers' best foot forward, the best we can for them, meaning that we can't overextend. You know, we can't say, well, we're just not going to put closing costs in when they don't have the funds to actually bring to closing for the closing costs. Or we can't just say, oh, we're going to bump up this price to a price that they can't afford. We need to keep their best interests in mind, yet we also need to keep in mind what is the best strategy, price, and terms for them to get this property. And it's a challenge. There's no question about it. It is an absolute challenge when you're going into multiple offers with 15, 20 offers, and the property goes 30, 50 or more thousand over asking, with buyers that are waiving appraisals and waiving inspections. Do you want your buyer to get in that situation? You know, my thing is, be as proactive as possible with your buyers, especially if they're in that demand price range, which is all of them right now, let's be honest, but it's that kind of first time home buyer price range that is like the multiple offers. And we need to set our clients up for success, but be proactive with it, meaning let them know, hey, listen, these properties, what we're seeing with our other clients are 15 to 20 multiple offers at one time. Here's what could happen. Why don't we come up with our strategy before we even get into this? Does that make sense, Suzette?
Yes, it does. Yes.
So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So thank you for chiming in, and we'd love to hear other feedback as well as we go along.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Do we want to move forward on that discussion and say who has had a solution to that problem? What do you do?
I'm up for talking about it. So I didn't know if you wanted to do it later or now, but we could do it whenever you're ready. So
Yeah, I mean, you know, let's just dive into it right now. Just, you know, for a minute, let's proceed. It's part of a term. It's part of how we're going to put our deal together. So how do we set ourselves up to make a win for our buyer? Who's had success in that, and what did they do?
Well, Deb, I could speak on that. If, you know, I know we do have a lot of newer agents on here. Maybe they haven't been in that scenario yet. So let's bring that to them. So I teach this course for Rhode Island Association of Realtors as well. So I get like really jacked up about it. So if my energy level is high, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So negotiating is, you know, something that you could really excel at and just kill it and with your clients, and they really get that satisfaction of, wow, this agent really helped me get where I wanted to go. And here's the other thing with that. Negotiations, if you don't have that strong knowledge of the market or the strong knowledge of the tools that you could add with negotiating, it could also affect you. So make sure when you're negotiating, you talk to your mentor and or productivity coach on what tools you can use for your terms and your buyers. And what I mean by that is, has anybody heard of an escalation clause on here? Put it in the chat.
Yes, I've used it before.
You have used it before. So can you tell us a little bit about why you used it?
They didn't want to offer the best price right up front. They did a, if they countered at this, then we'll do that. So, and it was automatic. So we really didn't have to keep going back and forth at the table.
And did it help you or hurt you in the transaction?
It helped. They didn't end up getting the house, but it helped.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so let's talk like really quickly about escalation clause. And I'm just talking about tools to have for your terms, right? Deb, is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very, very big tool that I use.
Right, so an escalation clause, they're called a couple of different things. Escalation, escalator clause, whatever it is in your market or your market center. Talk to your mentor in PC. What it is if you're putting an offer on a property, let's say it's for the sales price, but your buyer has the ability to go $10,000 over the sales price, but they don't really want to go $10,000 if they don't have to. So what an escalation clause is going to say is, our offer is $250. We will go up to $260 in $1,000 increments. Now, this is just an example, guys. This is not how every single one is going to read. This is just my example. Your increments could be different. Your price range could be different. This is just an example. At $250, it'll go up $1,000, and we will be $1,000 higher than anybody else, but not over $260. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
Okay.
Can
Anybody
you
that
repeat that, Jen? I'm sorry. Can you just repeat that again, please?
Absolutely. Yep. I want to make sure that you guys have clarity on this because it's, not that easy of a form, and it can really help, but it also cannot sometimes too. So you don't want to always use this form. All right. So your escalation clause, let's give an example of your property is $250,000, and your buyer is able to go up to $260. But they don't want to expose their hand right to $260. What they're going to do is add this escalation clause that says that they will beat any other offer that comes in by $1,000 up to $260,000. So if an offer comes in for $255, what is their new offer?
256.
256.
256. Awesome. That's exactly it. And what they're saying is they'll beat the highest bidder up to $260 by $1,000. Any other questions on that?
So is
Hi,
there
Jen.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Paul.
No, ladies first.
Thank you. So would there be a separate form that we are completing, or would that just be in the contract in the notes section?
That is a separate addendum or form that you're attaching with your offer.
Okay.
Right. So you want to make sure either at your market center or within your board, wherever you're working, you have very, very, very clear language on that to make sure your buyer understands what your escalation clause means and the listing agent understands what the escalation clause means. And you want to make sure your pre-qualification letter reflects that they can afford this higher amount. That kind of goes without saying. And I think that's extremely, extremely useful. And back to that question a little bit about what do we do with our buyers who can't seem to ever get anything? They can afford 300, and every time they find a house for 300, it ends up selling for 350 or 330. Let's brainstorm a little. What do we do? How do we make sure that our buyers get? What is one tactic that we would use to help these people get in the game? I know what I'm thinking. What do you guys have for an offer? Linda, what do you think?
I would incorporate this as a discussion point during the buyer consultation, and make sure that we had discussed it, that they knew when we were going to put that into play, so they would be comfortable with the process beforehand.
Yep.
And it may also have to adjust the price of the properties that we're looking at.
That's exactly where I was going, Linda, on that one. If your top line is 300 and you're getting beat out all the time, then maybe you need to look at houses for 250, which is a second dialogue you're going to have with your buyer. Guess what? You're always going to get beat out at that 300 price range, even with an escalation clause. So you need to go down to 275. Now you can beat everybody else out. We've all had that experience with buyers, and they're just never going to make it. So you have to lower their expectation of the cosmetically challenged houses, and that's what they're going to end up more so getting. Yeah, they can afford sort of a nice house, but unfortunately, unless they have that extra money, the extra volume, They're going to need to look at houses in a lower price range. I don't know if we've addressed that one issue of what to do with the closing cost. I don't know, has anybody had really good experience with getting a deal through with you needed to do closing costs? How was that handled? Anybody? Jen, did you have thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, part of it would be if you come up with an agreement with the seller and what the seller's looking to net, meaning they're good at 250. Well, when you're ready to finalize that offer and you say to the seller, great, we're going to provide you 250. We're just going to add on to $5,000 for closing cost credits and prepaids. You put it on in the back end, it doesn't affect the seller in any way. And especially if you make a note that that doesn't reflect on the appraisal amount. What I mean by that is if the appraisal comes in at 250 and you have a 255 sales price because you added on the $5,000 seller credit, you're telling the seller that that's not going to affect the sale. You'll put that $5,000 into it. Does that make sense? Deb?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm just, they're still financing the 255, you know, they're still financing that extra 5.
Absolutely.
So I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know how, you know, so yeah, again,
in this market, there's, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but buyers are coming to the table with the negative equity or whatever you want to call it, and financing. So they are adding in that 5,000 plus the 5,000 for closing costs.
Right. So essentially you're padding the price of the house. So the net for the seller is just a mathematical, it's just a number for them. Right. So
Yes.
I think this is why a negotiating class is so important, because there's so many nuances and so many things that can affect the outcome. And again, this starts all the way in the beginning, like Linda said, back at your, you know, your buyer consultation, or even back with your seller consultation. Hey guys, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have, I expect, a lot of offers on the table, and some of them, they're not going to be traditional like you may have seen them. They're going to be really, actually pretty interesting to go through. And we'll go through them one at a time, and we're going to choose the best one for you. And, you know, your buyer consultation is, hey guys, we're in a rough market. We have to be super strategic and make sure that we're making really smart decisions as to what, you know, as to what you're presenting. It has to make sense to you, and it has to make sense financially for you and your family. And, but, you know, and that's how we're going to work it all together. So negotiating tips to respond to common points. So when does all of this negotiating start here? When we present the offer? What do you think?
Wouldn't it start before? Maybe
Yeah.
when you're calling the agent to say, hey, I just want to let you know I have an offer coming in, or
Right.
my you know, client, my buyers are interested in putting in an offer. What's important to you? Kind of like what we learned yesterday.
Yeah, I love that discussion yesterday, and I cannot tell you how many buyer agents don't do that. You know, they never call and say, hey, what's important to your seller? Is there anything that you know that might, you know, be good direction for me when I'm putting together my offer for my buyer? And for a listing agent, that's a great thing. You can almost, you know, put in words what your sellers want. They want, you know, they really need to close fast. They are, you know, they really need to close fast, or hey, guess what? They need a lot of time, or they've owned the house for a long time and they just are going to stress out over any kind of repairs. You know, whatever you feel comfortable in telling your buyer, the buyer agent who's bringing in your offer within reason, obviously, you don't want to go into anything personal, but if your sellers need to go fast, and I think you should tell the buyer agents that. That way, if they have somebody that has a house to sell somewhere and it's going to take 6 months, and because they're going to overprice it $100,000, the buyer agents probably shouldn't be writing up the offer. So these are all the things that we learn in this prepare section here. The good old 3 Ps approach to negotiating, right? Negotiating is a skill that can be learned and perfected with experience. And again, the more you perfect these skills, the better you will be in terms of creating and in delivering value to your clients, both buyers and sellers, right? The better you negotiate, the better people will feel. The better you can negotiate, it's less painful for the parties involved. And there's definitely some tricks on that one. Anybody have any questions on that piece?
Sounds good.
All
Well,
right,
I had
good.
a thought, it's
Yeah.
getting back, if I could for a second, the escalation clause. It
Oh, yeah.
actually is a form, and it's made known to all three parties, the buyer's agent, the listing agent as well. Okay. Huh.
Yes.
That my questions got answered as everybody kept talking. So, but I wasn't aware it was actual form and that it was filled out, and
There is
that
a
the
form.
seller's agent was aware as well. Okay.
And be aware.
Incorporate it into your offer, Paul. Sorry, Deb.
Nope. Go ahead.
What was
Yeah,
that? I'm
it's a,
sorry.
Paul, it's actually a form that's part of your offer, just like the lead paint form or the seller's disclosure form or whatever. It's incorporated as part of your offer when you present the offer.
right. And I don't know about you, Jen and Lorna. Have you ever had any kickback from people that says, I don't like escalation clauses, which I don't understand why they don't like them, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's definitely not a tool to use every time, and that's what we were trying to get at. You just want to make sure you have your tool belt with you and only use it when you have to. The
Right.
escalation clause is one tool that could help in a transaction, but you need to know when it could. And that's something
Yeah.
that your mentor and productivity coach could help you with along the way on each transaction. So yeah,
Right.
don't get stuck on
And-
using this every transaction because it will not work. It's just a tool.
And just,
In typical, oh, sorry, Deb, I was going to say typically you see it more when it's in a multiple offer situation. That's usually when they get pulled out. And it is a personality thing for the listing agent and for the seller. Sometimes people don't want that gray area. Just give me what you're going to pay. People get like angry. So it is, and somebody had put in the chat, like you got to call the listing agent. You absolutely do. Would you accept it? And it's a personality. It definitely is a part of that DISC personality that we keep talking about. So
Yeah.
finding out first before you go through the whole discussion with your client about that option.
right,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Lorna makes a great point. I think if you have a high D client, they're just going to be like, let's just go. Like, if we know we're going to arrive at that number, let's throw that number on the table. To Jen's earlier point, it's a great tool. It's a great arrow to have in your quiver. It should not be overused. And I would argue even right now, even though we're seeing a ton of multiple offers throughout New England, I would say the expediency of and the time frame in which deals are getting completed, we're seeing less use of it in our market center for sure.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think it's again, that's what we're talking about. Let's make sure that we have everything that we need to do to really be successful here in this whole deal, you know? And you're going to do lots and lots of deals. So we want to make sure that you have every tool you need, you know? So we talk about all of the different terms, we're talking about conveyances, earnest money, repairs. There's many, many things we're going to go through. So let's talk a little bit about knowing the goal, you know? So we're in the sort of prepare section here of the program. You know, we're gonna be very prepared when we're putting together our thing. We want to know the goal. We hopefully have the goal of the seller that we know if we're working with the buyer. And obviously when we're working for the seller, we're going to have a very deep understanding of their goals. We want to know our clients either way. You know, what is their style? What is their comfort level? What is their experience level? You know, and I like this piece, think ahead. You know, we always want to really know what do we, you know, anticipate what the other party wants out of the negotiation. You know, always try to think, what are they going to come back with? You know, always be a little bit one step ahead of the game. Remember, you're the real estate agent. The buyers and the sellers don't do this every day. So this is what we need to do. Obviously, setting very clear expectations prior to the meeting, you know, with the other party. Make sure we're realistic. We want to under-promise and over-deliver, usually. You know, stress the importance of moving really quickly and create a sense of urgency. You know, and part of selling clear expectations with your client is being clear that win-lose agreements never really win. You know, we really always want to make sure it's going to work for the other side. And that's a super good negotiating skill set right there. Let's try to make it work for them. You know, you as a buyer, particularly in this market, you have to give up a little bit, but let's make sure we see the forest through the trees. We've already talked about being informed, with the other agents. And then obviously obey the laws. Every state and locality have their own laws and regulations regarding zoning, mortgage qualifications, and so forth. And we always must stay current. And all of the coaches here want everyone to know the documents inside and out, upside down, literally, and sideways, because again, if you don't know your documents, you're going to be worried that you don't know, and someone's going to ask a question, and that's going to inhibit you from listening at a high level. And we all know that listening is the #1 tool here in the real estate game. And you'll notice, all of you participants, when we ask a question, we always pause, because that's the coaches in us waiting, because we want to hear. We don't want to answer these questions for you. We want you guys to, come to these answers, because that'll make a hardwired in your head. We can sit all day long and tell you what to do, but we want to make sure that you're definitely processing and making sure that you're learning your skill set here. So that's what these pauses are about. We're going to just sit and let the silence do the heavy lifting here. And you want that also when you're working with your clients, and when you're working with your, whether it's a buyer or a seller, or working with another agent. And we've talked about this. All of these deals are with you and the other agent. So that when you talk, when you ask a question, you just listen, you will be surprised how much you learn. Same thing when you're calling a pre-qualification letter. That's a good question, a quick discussion. When you have an offer, and you have a pre-qual, do you call the mortgage lender and ask some questions? Anybody have any experience with that? You're a listing agent and you have 5 offers on the table. Are you calling the mortgage lenders? Any thoughts?
Yes. Yes, you are.
Yes, you are. And I will tell you, no disrespect, I love our lenders. We've had relationships with lenders for 30 years. When you ask a question, they're like real estate people. They like to talk, and they will tell you often more than they should about the buyer. If you're a listing agent and you call, they're not going to say any financial private stuff ever, but they will lead you into some things that might be interesting that you may not know. We've all had the VA 100% financing pre-qual. And when you call and the appraisal is going to come in way higher, and what are we going to do? And you call that lender, they're secretly going to tell you that the people have $50,000 to bring to the table. They shouldn't say that, or they're going to lean that. So they're going to lean toward that. So let's make sure we're asking good questions. And again, you stop talking, man, and they'll start telling. So if you take away anything from today's class, it's going to be about listening. Okay. Any thoughts on that? Anybody have any questions there?
I got a question. How would that conversation go? In terms of, like, how would you open it up with the mortgage broker if you know that they can't give you, financial information necessarily?
Right. So what you do, you call up Jim Gordon. He's a mortgage guy. And you go, "Hey, Jim, this is Deb Hayes over at Keller Williams. How are you?" And you go, "Yes," right?
I'm
Jim?
doing great. How are you?
Very, very good. So, hey, I've got an offer on the table. You're working with a client, Maria and Cliff Smith, and I have a pre-qual for $450. It's a VA thing. Are they 100% financing?
Yeah, sure. They are. They're a good couple, and we got them pre-approved.
All right. Have you done a full hard credit? Everything's been done. It's a full pre-approval, correct?
Correct.
All right. Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about the appraisal. I'm not sure how that's going to go. I'm a little bit worried for your guys.
Why is that? You think the appraisal is going to come in too high?
Well, the market's been crazy, and we're seeing things go over 10, 15, 20, 30 over. So a little bit nervous for these kids. But, I guess, we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, I think they should be okay.
Right. So you're you're a real estate agent, Jim, so you're not gonna but typically a mortgage person might, at that pause, when I go, okay, we're okay, we'll see how it goes, they're gonna go, but anyways, they're really great, and I've worked with them and their mom and dad, and I've sold 3 houses to their cousin and their uncle, and they're really, really, really well qualified. They'll be okay. I'm telling you, if you sit long enough, they'll tell you.
Okay.
Or they will say, you know what, these guys are tight.
Okay.
This is all they're tight. That's going to be
Okay.
tough. So again, I'm not trying to be mean or manipulate this mortgage person, but certainly you've got, it's a skill set you should learn. Do the other coaches in the group agree with that scenario? Am I stepping out of place here?
No, I agree. And I think, Deb, that they actually, a lot of our mortgage lenders say, tell the listing agent to call me so I can help let them know how great I am to work with, and then I'm going to make this deal happen. So they actually want to make the phone call because they want not only to say how great their buyer is and how qualified they are, but I have them all the way through underwriting and I'm going to get it done in 30 days and blah, blah, blah. So they want a chance to kind of, sell themselves and their service as well.
Yeah, the reason I brought it up, I had some friends that just coincidentally I was talking to recently, and they were upset at their mortgage broker for talking to the listing agent.
Usually I ask my buyers to get permission, do you mind? That is going to be a question that the listing agent's going to want to call.
Sure.
Yeah, I put that in the buyer consultation and remind them at the offer, at the time of offer, just let them know kind of the process. So just so you know, to put our best foot forward, here's the steps that are going to take. And one of them is, just so you know, is it okay for the lender or the listing agent to reach out to your lender to confirm your financing? Not the details of it, not any personal information, just that you are ready to purchase this property and intend to. That's it. It's just a quick little thing.
Yeah, I love that Bovie. I love that Bovie sets the stage with that. We need to remember, and she made a great point too. They're not going to be rifling through your underwear drawer, right? They're gonna find out what they need to know to have confidence to move forward. The agent, there's an agent representing the buyer, there's an agent representing the seller, and there's an agent representing the money, and that's the lender. And all three of these people need to be working as a team for it to go well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the other reason, just as a side note, you call the lender and you say, hey, I'm working with Marie and Cliff, and they put in a pre-qual. If that lender says, who, what, I don't know, who are they? Ooh, that's a little red flag. That means, and then I'm going to prompt, hey, have you done a full credit check and W-2, the whole 9? Have you done everything? If a lender doesn't sort of know these people's names, yeah, they may take a minute to, because they're talking to lots and lots of people. But if they clearly don't know who they are, you kind of have to wonder, is this one of those online quickie pre-qual things or not? So again, all of these tools that we have in our belt to make us smarter and more effective and bring value to the table so that we're helping these clients of ours make a very, very smart, this is a big, huge business decision for them. Yes, it's emotional and they live there and all that stuff. That's their job to be all emotional. Our job is to be the business people behind the deal and be, and work as we should and be very consistent. And I'll tell you this too, as you go forward, have the same systems in place really for everything that you do. And it'll become extremely natural to you. So we're still in our little
one other thing real quick, Deb, the one other thing that we're running into a lot, and I'm sure people are experiencing it throughout New England, is the employment verification is going right up until the 11th hour right now. So if you are making that phone call and just saying, hey, any other hurdles that we have to clear, they were like, yeah, we haven't been able to get Jim's office on the phone, because they're closed or whatever the case may be. So just know that's been another hurdle we've been running into, and that's another reason you want to have a great relationship with the lender.
Right, and I'm hoping you guys are taking copious notes here on these tools that you want to have in your tool belt so that, you can sit down and review after and say, okay, I need to make sure that I'm doing these things that I learned from these folks that day, whenever it was. So yeah, you're preparing, you're asking a lot of open-ended questions, and we have close-ended questions, right? We have the open-ended questions that make more of the nurturing discussion. What additional information do I need to know about you, buyers? And again, this is all part of the different consultations that you're in. You want to know about their family and their lifestyles and their interest in their financial profile and all of that. And what's important about closing in 30 days? Well, why do you need 90 days? What's going on? Do you have something to sell? Are you renting? Are you trying to get money out of somewhere? You know, what's happening? And how do you feel? This is the nurturing feeling, you know, preparing. Okay, and then you really need to get into the closed end yes or no type stuff. Do you have a house to sell? Yes or no? Just really no anything else. Do you have any, and then for the selling listing agent, do you have any other offers? You're going to get 2 answers. You're going to say no, or I don't have any on the table right now, but I expect 5 by the end of the day. Or yes, I have 1 on the table, but I do expect, it's been crazy. What's the bottom, and then this over to the buyer, what's the bottom line price that you would consider, kind of thing. You know, so these are yes and no type stuff, which is, it's going to help you move, you know, sort of forward. And then you always want to do that. What would happen if, you know, we always need to, you know, kind of make sure that we know, you know, what happens if things don't go well? How do we handle the next steps? What's the most important thing to you? Go ahead.
Deb, there's a question in the chat box that says, so Deb, based on the scenario that you just created, you're staying at the 450 price ceiling question. Mark asking if there's any cash available as well. So
I'm not sure if I get the question.
Yeah, Paul, why don't you come off mute and tell us a little bit more about your questions?
Yeah, let's have a discussion.
Okay,
That's
sure.
what we're getting to. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I remember in that scenario you created with Jim, I believe it was, that it was 100% financing, and but if they're hard qualified at the 450, everything's good, all the T's are crossed, I's are dotted. Are you staying right at that ceiling, or are you asking more if the market or the area that this buyer prefers is priced higher generally? Is there any cash available? Are you working all different term scenarios?
Right. So in that scenario, I was acting as the listing agent. So now I have information, okay, and I have multiple offers. And one of the offers is a 100% VA financing person. Depending on the outcome of my discussion with that lender, when we send, you know, typically we send everything back for best and final. I may know already that these VA people can't come back any higher. Or I may know that I don't know. I'm never going to know 100%, but based on that conversation, I may or may not know. And then when I'm reviewing all the other offers, based on my conversation with this VA lender, I can anticipate what we may hear back. I may hear back that, hey, this VA guy might come back in really strong. I got a little hint from their lender that they've got a ton of money. Now, whether the buyer wants to or not is their own decision. You know, I have had deals, and I bring that up because I've had a deal with a VA 100% financing guy. They had multiple offers, and I was really worried about the appraisal because I listed it way too high, and the offers came in even higher. And I said to my seller, this is nuts, but we'll see. And so we chose the VA buyer based on what the lender had said to me and what the buyer agent said. And then let me just say one more thing. So we accepted the offer, and then we even followed it up with 2 things: proof of funds that they had the extra money. Okay, so yes, we will take your offer. And then the attorney put in language that said, in the event, of course his words were better, in the event that the appraisal does not meet bank's requirement, seller agrees to move forward with his own additional funds. Attached proof of funds. So the seller was really protected. And yeah, the appraisal did come in really low. And at the end of the day, just as a side note, the seller did adjust the price a little just because. And I said, you know, because he was just a good guy and he was moving forward. He had a tough deal on the other end. He didn't like it. And he said, you know what, we can do a little adjustment if you think that would be cool. Because he didn't even know the people, but he sort of somehow. So yeah, so there's ways to protect, but it all has to be done in writing.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Lorna.
Yeah, but I was going to say, I see something in the chat box, and I guess maybe just going back to basics a little, the appraisal question. There's a very long conversation in the chat about the appraisal and what happens when it's low. So can I speak to that? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So in this scenario, she wrote, say that they agreed on a price of $250 and the appraisal came in at $240.
Yeah.
That's the scenario. So there's a couple things that can happen. One, the buyer can pay the $10,000 in difference to make their mortgage the same. So their mortgage isn't changing. The seller could lower the price down to the $240, or they could meet in the middle. The seller could come down $5 in the price and the buyer could put $5,000 in.
Yep.
Eileen, does that answer your question and clarify it for you? I want to make sure before we because we've talked about it so much, I want to make sure that we understand it. So how do we know how much more to offer above the asking price? I know you do a CMA, but people are asking $30,000 or more. In this market, it is taking spaghetti and throwing it against the wall. Like, see what will stick. It's a bidding war. And so in bidding wars, we don't know. And we just have to do what is acceptable for the buyer and makes sense. That's really, it's up to, our advice and the buyer's, comfort level. Deb, do you want to add anything to all of that?
Yeah, I think this is a very hard market for buyers. Really, really, really hard market for buyers. And even the sellers actually feel bad for the buyers, a little, even though they're pushing them all around. First of all, yeah, you do a little CMA on what you think the house is worth. And you also hopefully are looking at those that are under agreement. And if they're going to close fairly soon, it doesn't hurt to call the listing agent on that deal and say, hey, what do you think, kind of, sort of, how much is that going to close for? And if it's fairly close and they have a clear to close, often they may tell you that. But yeah, it's a comfort level. It's a comfort level with the buyer. And again, this is why we're seeing a lot of buyer fatigue, because they're really getting pushed around. So there's no magic number to answer that question. There's no magic number. You have to anticipate. You can look at some data. In the last 30 days, most houses have been selling at whatever, 9% over, or whatever the number is in your market area, and say, this is what we're expecting. And then they have to proceed forward. They're either moving forward with a higher price and getting a deal, or they have to lower their expectations, so they're the guy beating everybody else out. So is that help? What do you think, Lorna?
Yeah, and I think, Eileen asked me how we could guarantee it, and I was starting to type, and I think that it's probably good for just everyone to hear is, the best thing we can do for our sellers and our buyers is in the initial consultation, make sure that we're setting the expectation. This is what we're seeing in the market. This is what could happen, and what's your comfort level around that. Then when you get offers as a seller and or giving offers as a buyer agent, this is the scenarios that we could see, do you feel comfortable with? What's that number? And we talked about it yesterday, that kind of no regrets number, that they are willing to say, yeah, I don't want to spend more than blah, blah, blah. So
right, because
it's an expectation thing.
Yeah, it's an expectation thing, and people have to still live their life and buy groceries and pay for gas and do their thing, and we hate to say it, but it's true. This may not be the best market for everyone,
I agree.
And that goes against your instinct as a real estate agent. And, but yeah, sometimes it really isn't the best market for people. If they're, we don't want people, you're never going to have a long-term relationship with somebody if they've really made a bad decision. So, having said all of that, again, make sure you're keeping really good notes on this, and, talking to your coach and talking to other agents in your office, I think can be helpful. So now we're going to go ahead.
I have a question for you. Have you ever had to tell a client that this wasn't the best market for them? And
yeah, sometimes you do.
How do they react to that?
Well, first of all, they're shocked that you say it, because they think you're, oh, what do you, and sometimes it's really more, now you're getting into more of a personal sort of discussion with them. And you don't say it in a mean way. You say, this market isn't for everyone. It's okay if you don't. And sometimes it gives them a little sense of, all right, it gives them a little bit of control too, because oftentimes buyers feel very much out of control here in these types of, environments. And it gives them a chance to pause in a little bit and go, you know what, maybe this isn't this isn't the right market for us. Or they can pause and go, okay, we do have the choice, but you know what, let's just get in there. We'll make it happen. We're going to do what she says. Let's start looking at lower price stuff so we can get something.
Okay.
The rates are cheap. The rates are super low. Let's just get into the game. Sometimes it's a good pivotal point for them to make a decision whether or not maybe they should. Now it shows there, okay, let's go for it. All right, we had a chance to, we didn't even thought that. We thought we were on the crazy train and we couldn't get off. Here's your opportunity maybe to get off, and that will very often push them forward. So does that answer that question?
The other thing, Deb, if I can jump in, is thinking, you're starting to, again, understand different personalities. And in that buyer consultation, when you're talking with them and you're explaining that houses are going for 105% over asking.
Yeah.
And I think I shared this yesterday. I can't remember which group I shared it with, but I had 2 different buyers that were like, I'm never going to overpay. I'm not getting into a multiple offer situation. That's crazy. And yet one of them did get into the multiple offer situation.
The other one did, but didn't get it. Yeah.
And then the other buyer actually bought new construction. So they didn't have a bidding war at all. It was an off-market property, and that worked for his personality. So again,
and right to that point, Lorna. So people say, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that. But once they get into the thing, they realize it's a reality. Exactly. And, but again, that can either push them forward or, maybe to have them take a break. So really interesting. This is why this business is interesting. It's not cookie cutter. It's not, here's your book, go do it. Yes, there is a book, of course, but, this is all part of the nuances of working with the different people. Clients are people, and this is what we need to remember. And part of our value in working with the buyers, and we're talking a lot about buyers here, working with the sellers, it's the same thing. They are going to get as jazzed about it as you will, as the buyers will. So now we're going to start presenting the offers. Okay. So here we go. We're going to pay attention. So these are skills that I think you're picking up on here. We're going to pay attention. So we have the process. Everybody has a different process of writing up their offers and presenting them to the other agent. Most everybody agrees. You call the agent, you've got your offer all written up. You already had your conversation with them about the seller's needs. You're going to call them and say, hey, I'm shooting you over an offer in like 2 minutes. Here's the overview. All right. You email that offer over, you text them, you make sure they confirm all of the above. You want to make sure. But you're already having sort of nice, friendly conversations with that listing agent already. And so they kind of know when you're going to send something over. So you send it over and then you listen. You pay attention to verbal and nonverbal cues. And that's another whole topic too, how to understand people's different styles. And the old keep quiet once you present your offer. Listen to how the other the listing agent responds. They're going to respond in many different ways, and you're going to listen carefully and look for their response. They're either going to go, oh my God, that's great. Thanks so much. I'll be putting all the offers together tomorrow at 2, and we're going to be meeting with the seller, and I'm really hoping we can get a great deal with somebody. Or, oh my God, another offer. I mean, you're going to learn of how different agents work. And then when you present the offer, they're going to go, oh my God, they want to close here and they want to do that. We're not negotiating here yet. You're going to present that offer over to the seller. Okay. And then don't start getting into it. And some listing agents make that mistake. They start the negotiating process before they've even talked to to their seller. I don't know if anybody has any, kind of thoughts on that one. But that can happen. So, real estate people are people too. and they have different styles and they react differently to things, and it's all that same thing. We're always going to stay calm and relaxed, which is, again, people have emotional reactions to things, and we want to always be the calming influence through this process. We're going to focus on the customer's needs and isolate objections, whether on whatever sides people are on, and then give your offer the best chance. Always be confident and committed to the offer as you present it, and avoid indicating whether you think the offer is low. Just present it on over, and let's just let the system work a little bit. Whoops, where'd I go? All right, so yeah, be confident. Again, we're the professionals here, right? We're not.
Love that, Deb.
Well,
I love that, because sometimes I'll get an offer and they'll say right out, oh, I know it's really low, but my buyer wanted to try. You work for the buyer. Where's your fiduciary? Just saying. Thank you for bringing that up.
Well, this is the thing, and we've talked a little bit about this through the program, and we're all having, you have an offer, and we're in charge of price and terms, right? We're in charge of discussing this with our clients. Whether, and now I'm talking as a listing agent, which I always fall into that when there's a scenario, and you've got 10 offers on the table. They all have a pre-qual. Some of them are cash, and they all have that lovely love note letter to the, now I don't know if you've talked a lot about this previously. And again, we have to be careful with those letters, because you can get into some fair housing issues with them. And this couple is cute, and they have 2 little kids and a dog, and these people make a lot of money, so we should go with them. If there's a letter attached to the offer, and correct me if I'm wrong, it still has to be presented. Now, we have to be careful about that, because you get in discussions about the person, the people, that has nothing to do with price and terms. All right, and be very careful, because people have underlying, they don't even know it, discriminating things that they're doing. And again, we're the professional. We're in charge of helping them make a smart decision as a business, as part of a big, big, big financial piece in their world. And if you're getting sucked into that emotional part, then you're not doing your fiduciary to this client. And guess what? They might as well have a for sale by owner if they're just going to make kooky decisions based on some letter that, by the way, we don't even know if any of it is true. Right? So that's a big caveat. We had a big discussion about that in my market center about, oh, but my seller wanted to have it with this lovely couple. What's wrong with that couple? So we have to be very, very careful about it. And that was my thing. I said, then why aren't they just for sale by owners if they're going to make decisions based on emotion? They've hired us and they're paying us well to do our job as their trusted advisor, and we do have fiduciary on both sides. So anyways, that was a little tangent I went on, because I have a big attitude about that, and I do think sellers are making decisions based on those letters, and I know buyer agents are recommending them because it's going to help you get chosen. Well, it makes me a little nervous of why people are getting chosen. So, when you guys are newer agents out there, let's make sure that we're always acting on the highest professional level. Any comments on that? I don't want to open a big thing. I don't know if Jen's still here. What does everybody think about that one?
We did talk about that a little bit yesterday, about love letters, and a lot of we're talking about the same thing with fair housing, etc., and how people are starting to go away from them. Yet I know as buyer agents, when you're putting your buyer agent hat on all day long, you want to promote your client, and if the cute little puppy in the picture makes that happen, as a buyer agent, that you're all about it. But as a listing agent, I don't like them, because then I want my seller to make a reasonable choice. And just to give you how this all works, I had multiple offers. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago. The buyers wrote an offer, and it wasn't the highest, but they had pictures of their little kid, about how they were going to live there, how much they loved the house, blah, blah, blah. The seller actually loved them so much, took less for the house, sent them a Christmas card, like loved them, and then they sold it a year and a half later.
Yeah.
So
What do you think, Tim? I
So
can tell.
can I say
ahead.
something in terms of this? It's Lisi.
Yeah.
For the, I get, like, you really need to know your area, especially with what's going on in the world right now. So you definitely need to know the area, because you don't want your offer to not get accepted because of that letter. So with the letters, because of low inventory, I would suggest getting a letter. I had this conversation with a client last night where she's like, I don't want to go over 30 over asking. I don't want to go over asking at all. Is this the right time to buy? And I said, well, with the price range you want, it is difficult, but what we can do is get you pre-approved, know your numbers, and I'll have you write a letter. We'll have your pre-approval, and depending on what area, I can see what, if there's any houses that are expired or what has recently sold, and I can write, and you can write that letter based on that, saying, you know what, I really want to buy a house. Are you, is your family, or do you guys want to sell your house to me, basically? So you avoid having to have that other party, and you're kind of just the buyer's agent, and you're doing all the work.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, anything you can do to get, if you can find something like that, something that has expired or something, yeah, that's certainly a fantastic tool that a lot of people forget. Let's go after business that's not somebody that expired a long time ago, if I'm understanding your statement. Yeah, it's a tough one out there. Again, this is a really difficult market to be in. Tim, I think you had something you wanted to add before. Thoughts?
Always. Of course I do, Deb.
Always.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Let's go back to bold real quick and remember that logic makes them think, emotion makes them act. And more importantly, like, you've made an offer at on the home. So for you to tell me again in a letter that you really want the house, we got that. What I need you to do as the buyer is create an emotional attachment. And again, another great quote, people rarely remember what you said. They'll remember how you made them feel. The power of the words that you're writing, because our connection is our words, our tonality, and our body language. All they're going to have is your words. Make it well crafted and make it about the importance for them. Not, hey, it's important for me to get this house for X, Y, and Z. I know it's important for you to have someone take ownership of this home, right? Because when we talk about a house, we're talking about a physical structure. When we talk about a home, we're talking about the heart of the family. And we can't use the word family. And I know people object sometimes to putting pictures in. If you have a diverse family, whatever the case may be, please work with your clients to do what's right for them. And you put a wet finger in the wind and make sure you know the temperature of the conversation. And again, use the emotion to act appropriately and to create an attachment between the unmet buyer and seller. They don't need a letter that tells them you really want the house. They know that. And certainly don't write that letter if you're coming in 40 under ask, right? Use it to be that it's that one more, it's the cherry on top, quite honestly. And it's not, again, just like the escalation clause, it's not for use every time. Because when listing agency, you come in with a letter again and the 8x10 glossy from Glamour Shots, they'll be like, here we go again. Because sometimes that would start to tell me as the listing agent, that means if we really read the paperwork, something in here sucks, right? Something in Denmark stinks. So use it as a tool sparingly and appropriately and emotionally.
Right, because you can be a listing agent and see the same letter come through on several different homes. I've had these letters with the wrong address on them. You know what I mean? So let's be careful, but I don't like, as a list, we have to make business decisions here. Yes, we love the little family, but what's wrong with the people without the family? And again, that are going to pay more money. And this is, it's like the internet. Not everything you read is true. So I just, that could be another whole class, and probably should be, in terms of the fair housing stuff. So anyways, let's keep moving on. What time is it? Do we take breaks at all? What do we do? Just keep rolling through? You want to take a little break and we'll move on to some additional tactics?
We do usually take a break.
All right, you guys want to take a quick break? I have 10 past. You want to come back at 10? I have 5 past. You want to come back at 10? Just 10 minutes, 10:15? Yeah. All right, I'm not closing out here. I'm just leaving it open. All right, go do your thing, take a break, have a water, do what you
Hi, Deborah, can I ask you a quick question?
You may.
So I'm very excited because this weekend,
Somebody's going through a train station.
this weekend I have my very first open house. Doing it for another Market Center.
Somebody's on an airplane.
I'm gonna mute all. Hang on.
Thank you. I don't know, I can't do it. I'm sure I can, but I can't figure it out.
All right. So now, if you need to talk, you need to open your mic again, please. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks. So I have my very first open house that I'm doing for another agent, and I'm brand new. So I'm just kind of asking any little tips or advice, or I don't know, just a little encouragement, I guess. Oh, I think
Jen,
you're-
this is the one you're doing in Northampton, yes?
Yes.
Yep. If there's a possibility that you can have anyone from our market center join you, because I know obviously you're doing it for Jason because he can't be there.
Right.
If you could get somebody else to join you,
Okay.
that would be phenomenally safe. And honestly, within the grand scheme of things, if even if your husband or a good friend could at least be there,
Sure.
from a safety standpoint. Moving forward, a great idea is if you have a local lender that can be there. And we've got a great in-house lender. His name's Brad Kelly. He's about 6'9". I'm joking, but he's tall and he plays hockey. And if he's there, he can help people get pre-approved right away. He can have that initial conversation on your behalf almost immediately. So develop that lender conversation, because a lot of times they're willing to be there and provide cookies and cupcakes and water and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And again, people are going to be coming through differently because of COVID. So the traffic will be less fluid. At the same time, having somebody else there just for peace of mind is always good.
Okay.
And other than that, really just drilling down with Jason and making sure you know what his standard is. What is his expectation of contact information acquired on the way in? Super easy leverage right now is because of the age of COVID. We're able to say, hey, listen, the sellers request the information on everybody coming through. And honestly, for contact tracing right now, it would make sense that people would offer up their opportunity to say, this is us and this is who we're working with. You want a line right there, and he probably has sheets for you, a line right there that says the agent that they're currently working with. Because I want to circle the wagons back with Jen Raymond and say, hey, Jen, Tim Lindsay had an open house today. Your buyers came through, wondering what they had for additional feedback beyond what they left with me, and if they're looking for that second showing, because we've a lot of interest today,
Sure. One thing that was good was that he said that, he requested that, one group come through at a time because of COVID. So I feel like it'll be a little easier to manage with that, but
for sure. Yep. And I think one of the, I'm sure a lot of people are doing this around New England. I think a smart thing to do for sure is all the lights are on, depending on the temperature, have windows open as an added security situation. And you're going to be in a pretty populated area, but from a security standpoint, just great tool to use moving forward is always have additional doors open for you to exit a different way if you feel unsafe. And then I'd have all the lights on. I would have all the doors open. I'm not going crazy like opening up the cereal cabinet in the kitchen. That looks a little psychotic. Any door that they would open to look into a closet, have that already open. It's one less point of contact for the incoming buyers and consumers. And if all the lights are on and all the doors are open, there's less contact. They're looking with their eyes. And if your seller is requesting booties, they've got booties on. There's literally nothing for them to touch. They're in and they're out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, sorry, I was on mute.
I totally thought that was me. I was like, I'm checking my speakers. Did I mess something up?
I think when we first came back on, Tim muted everybody because I think somebody was getting on an airplane and we could hear everything, or a train or something. So that's the case.
Yeah, that was
So
a connecting flight from Providence to Brazil. Sorry about that. Yeah, and I'm grateful you were muted. I'm hitting that certain age. I'm like, oh God, is this it? I'm gonna die at the office.
I had a keen ear listening to that. Somebody was on the green line getting off at Government Center in Boston.
That's funny. Jen, where is your open house? What town?
It's in Hampton, New Hampshire.
All right, so you should have a good crew. So keep us posted. Let us know how you make out. And then maybe, are you going to do a little Facebook Live while you're standing there?
I was planning on it, yes.
All right, we'll be looking for it. All right.
All right, thank you.
All right, so we kind of left off. We did a lot of talking about writing up offers and understanding the seller's needs and the buyer's needs and acting like a professional. I like that we're doing some case studies here. I think that's I'm assuming everybody thinks that's a good idea. I think if you want to keep throwing stuff in the chat, I can't see the chat, but I see Lorna's kind of monitoring it a little bit. So as we move forward, we'd love to hear your experiences or your questions. This is Ignite, guys. This is where you're going to learn, and you're going to learn from people who have been around. You're going to learn from people that are new. And between everybody, you're going to really put things in your tool belt, as Jen says. So, when you see something of good, let's brainstorm on it, or mastermind, as we like to say here at Keller Williams. So, okay, so let's talk about tactics. And it's funny, these are like the three things that are strategies that people use when they're I don't know who came up with these words. And by the way, the counter tactics don't match correctly, but we'll go through that. So everybody sort of has their style, whether it's the seller or the other agent. And there's really 3 tactics, and they're kind of funny, I think. So you have your hot potato, which means they just want to get rid of the problem and throw it back on you. Then we have the good guy, bad guy scenario that we've always seen on TV, but people use it in real life. And then we have something called nibbling, which I think, and you guys can tell me what you think, that's the most used negotiating and the most easy to control. But if you lose control of it, you're just going to be nibbling until on the way to the closing. You'll still be nibbling. So let's talk about these things for a minute. So what do you guys think about something called hot potato? What does that in your mind say? What do you guys think? What does that mean? Hot potato. Remember that game?
Aggressive.
What else?
It's to pass it around, to move it away from you to the next person.
Yeah. Right. It's to pass it on. It's hot. You don't want to touch it. Okay. Then we all know the good guy, bad guy thing. What does everybody think about that? In the real estate world. Thoughts?
You guys can unmute and just answer, you know.
Yeah, right. Unmute, guys. Remember, unmute. Whoever's on their train. Thank you, Matt, for that observation. Good guy, bad guy.
It's like mom and dad. One's the good guy, one's the bad guy, right? Good couple.
That is a very much a negotiating style. Well, my wife doesn't want to do this, or my partner doesn't want to do that. Or, you know, it's a little bit of the, I'm willing to be good. It's like the TV show, The Cop, the nice cop and the bad cop. And
Maybe the agent.
Yeah, the agent.
Pitting
Yeah,
them against each
absolutely.
other.
Yep. How about nibbling? What is nibbling? And again, nibbling is the most one used and the most one that drives you nuts and the easiest one to control if you know how to do it. What does nibbling mean?
Sticking your toe in the water.
Asking for little things, continually asking as they say yes to certain small things.
Jen, somebody else, now somebody's cooking.
I was
Jen
going to say,
said
give an inch, take a mile type situation.
Yeah. You might
nibbling.
ask for something small, and then if they say yes, then you
You
can
get it.
ask
Yeah.
for something.
Oh, I got away with that. So now what else can I get?
Yep. Yeah, it's nibbling. It's just exactly what it's called. It's nibbling on something. You nibble, you get it. You nibble some more, you get it. You nibble some more, you get it. And as agents here, when you start working in the process, you're going to see that very quickly, and it's most often used. Yeah, good guy, bad guy, we know. So how do we counter tact? What are the counter tactics here? And as you can see, they're not A, B, and C. Which one is a hot potato, and how do you solve it?
B.
Somebody said C.
I said B.
Right. What could a hot potato be? Hot potato is like the buyer wants something big. They want the roof done. No, they want something really big, and the seller goes, hot potato is usually a bigger item, and the seller goes, hey, it's been fine. We've never had a leak. And then the buyer goes, well, the home inspector says it's at the end of its life. And then the seller said, so you're just throwing the same thing back and forth. So how do we solve that? Let's discuss.
The seller could agree to a credit at closing for the roof, or they could agree to, if they do the roof, raise the price. Or they could say, have the buyer be responsible for the roof. Like I say, and give a credit at closing.
Okay, so those are solutions. So we're trying to counter tactic here. So if you have somebody that is using something from a home inspection, we need to find out if that's really a problem. And before you agree to stuff, I think if I'm saying this correctly, before you agree to anything, let's make sure it really is a problem. particularly, oh my God, there's termites. The home inspector found pest infestation. Okay? Every home inspector finds pests. Not every, but a lot. Because they see something and they're not certified pest people. So they're going to say, oh, this is probably pest or maybe pest.
The seller can provide with a letter saying that that's in a good condition with a professional letter.
Right. So what has to happen, so this is the thing with hot potatoes. If something comes back, it's supposed to be hot. Is it really hot, or is it just the buyer has perceived that from the home inspection? So we need to determine if this is truly a problem. Okay, you know, home inspectors often find what they call pest, and we're in New England and we have a lot of pests. We have, you know, this is just New England. So you have to solve this problem and determine if it's real by suggesting, before we agree on anything, let's have a certified person come over and check this thing. Okay, a lot of agents will very quickly go into negotiations before determining if something is truly a problem. All right, so that's that hot potato thing. Let's make sure it's really real before we start solving that problem. And what's the good guy, bad guy thing? How do we solve that problem? Oh, my partner doesn't want to do this, but I do, and how do we solve that? Any thoughts? So I'll answer that one. And again, this doesn't come up that much, but just recognize it. Keep it in the back of your head when you start to see it. It's really a game. They're just using that as a tactic. I mean, sometimes that can really be a true thing where two different people disagree. And that's really up to the agent themselves to work them through that. But if you're in a negotiating and it's part of the counter offer, when the people say, oh, the one buyer wants to do it, but the other one can't agree, then you have to say, look, don't be doing good guy, bad guy on me. Come back with what you want, right? Don't get pulled into some of these things that aren't architecturally pertinent to the home. All right, and we talked a little bit about nibbling, and you will see that very often. That is when they just ask for a little and you give a little. And then so how do we, any thoughts on how do we conquer nibbling? Anybody have any thoughts? Somebody says, okay, we'll do the deal, but we want the refrigerator, okay? And the we want the refrigerator. And when the people come back, okay, we'll do the deal with the refrigerator. And then the people go, well, now they kind of a little bit really need the washer and dryer. Now this is a sign that we're gonna be nibbling all the way. You're gonna get to the deal, and then we're going to have the mortgage. There's always going to be more nibbling. So right in the beginning, after one go through and they say, okay, we've agreed on the fridge, and then they come back and they say, well, now we really want the washer and dryer. And instead of just asking your seller, hey, throw in the washer and dryer, you're not going to take it anyways, whatever. Because once you throw in that washer and dryer, now they're going to want the riding lawnmower. It's just never going to end. So after that first piece where just, for example, you agree to the fridge, and then they say, well, now they want the washer and dryer. Now you go, now you have to bring something back to the table. All right, we're going to give you the washer and dryer, but you know, we really do now want $8,000 at deposit instead of $7,000. Always come back with something to shut that door. Has anybody ever had that experience and have any thoughts on that? Because, go ahead. And I'm sure you've had it in your life too, with your kids or whoever, you know, and that's a very common thing. And actually people don't even realize they're doing it, but they're developing a pattern that is going to be through the deal all the way. The appraisal come in, and then right before, then they're going to do the walkthrough, and on the way to the closing, they're still going to be nibbling. So at the very beginning, when you start feeling, and you'll remember this as you're going along, you're going to go, oh, I remember that Ignite, they were talking about this, and this is exactly what's happening. So whenever, after they've gone back a couple times and you start pushing back with, okay, we'll give you that fridge, but no, we really want to close 2 weeks early. And that'll slow that right down. So always remember that tactic. It's it's again, it's used often and it's almost unconscious, and it actually creates a ton more work for everybody. And, you know, it's usually also on very, very small items, which is kind of interesting. Anything in the chat we might want to talk about? Anybody have any real specific questions?
Can we go back to the good guy, bad guy tactic?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what it means to say attribute the bad guys statement to the good guys, so that you have two bad guys. Can you just give an example?
All right, so this is a negotiating tactic where they'll take turns trying to get something from the other party, blaming it on this one or that one. But if we can just make, you know, if I can make my wife happy on this, we'll go forward. Or the buyer agent will say, if we could just get this, she'll be happy and we'll move forward. And then you agree, and then all of a sudden now the husband has a problem. And, you know, so what they're doing, they're kind of working each other together to get double, you know? So you always have to call them on that. Say, look, we're not doing this. You know, remember, this is a tactic. So you have to have ways to handle it, you know?
Right. Okay, for example, the husband says, well, I really can't do this because the wife wants to do that. So what do? Turn to the wife and say, is this what you need, or that what you want? Or is there another way that you two can come together to decide how we're going to move forward?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what you do. You have to work together with them. If you're working with the buyers, for example, and they're trying to work, whether it's conscious on their part or not, you know, maybe unconscious on their part, but if they're not on the same page, yes, you have to work them. You have to work it together and say, we can't do this. We have to come to, you know, we have to set our priorities and figure out what is really most important. And if you guys aren't on the same team, then we're going to be in trouble. And if you're on a team that's not working, we're going to be in trouble. Same thing with the sellers. Oh, she wants this and he wants that, or he wants this and he wants that, whoever the people are, you have to say the same thing. You know, this is the property. We need to get agreement before we go back, because you're just gonna, it's working with two indecisive children, you know? And then and it makes the deal very, very difficult. And that piece almost really starts before, but sometimes people don't have solid seller consultations or solid buyer consultation. This will rear its head. And for that, you have to know how to handle it.
Thank you.
All right, other questions?
Hey, Deb, I got a quick question regarding the hot potato thing. Using that scenario, say that a buyer wants something offbeat, saying they want a room painted or something like that. Would you advise just sticking to issues that are going to be concerns with the lender as far as the home inspection goes?
So this is a good topic, and I'm hoping the other PC coaches come in. So we have a home inspection, and you know, you've seen a home inspection. They're 25 pages long with 18 photographs. It's very thorough, and in the buyer may come back with a grocery list of things that they want. And what I usually focus on, and everybody can chime in, home inspection is for structure, safety, and health, right? Is the electric okay? Is the structure solid? And is there any health issues regarding mold and all of that kind of stuff? If people come back, the thing that I focus on with my listing is to determine, you know, are these issues that every home inspector is going to find? Right? And if we're going, first of all, we're not negotiating anything until we have a professional come and look at it. If somebody says that there's mold, which they never are supposed to say the word M, but then we get somebody in immediately, well, actually the buyer, as part of his inspection, his or her inspection, should be having follow-up people come in and verify. Have a pest inspector to come in and really evaluate if there's actual active something happening, which really, I don't know, I can't speak. I can only speak for myself. Most of the time, it's not as bad as people think, as the home inspector has presented. Home inspectors want to make sure they cover their butt and not miss anything. Okay, same thing with the roof. Yeah, it's old, but let's have a roof person come over and make sure everything is everything rotted, or is it just the paint is peeling? Usually we know the thing right before rotted wood is peeling paint. So you have to make sure that, I don't know if I'm going off on a tangent in terms of that, but you want to make sure that if there's going to be an issue and there's going to be a consideration on the price, that you are making sure that it's a real thing. Is that, am I answering that question?
Yeah, no, if that was previously answered, I apologize that I didn't get it, but yeah, you did. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of it, and we all get very jazzed about our offers, and oh, they want this done and this done, and we have to decide by tonight. Everybody put the brakes on a little bit. Everybody have a little time out. Let's do some thinking. Yeah, I went up in your attic. I'm a professional. I'm not a certified mold person, but looks a little fishy to me. I've got a person, let's get them right over and determine how much it costs to fix it. And then, of course, we go into the negotiation piece on that. And that can be a hot potato too, where the seller's going to go, hey, I never had any problem. No problem. That's your thing. And the buyer agent's going to go, I know it wasn't your problem, but my people are going to live here for 20 years. And the listing agent goes, well, then they should invest in fixing their mold. So it can go kind of back and forth, you know? What other questions regarding tactics? Anybody else have a scenario we'd like to discuss?
I was just going to agree with you, Deb, on all of that. And again, back to setting expectations about a home inspection for your buyer and your seller, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about, at the buyer consultation, we're talking about no home is perfect. You're never going to find that. Even with new construction, no home is perfect. So I set the expectation ahead of time and talk about, and remind them again at the offer, but that we're looking for, like Deb said, safety, structural, mechanical defects, right? Things that are health issues. We're not looking for a scratched paint or, cosmetics. And every home inspector has their thing that they focus on a lot. So, everything is fixable. Just about everything is fixable. So having that conversation with the buyer, and on the seller side saying, gosh, when we have a home inspection, we might hear things that you actually don't even know about, right? Like sellers don't go check to see if they have rotted sills, or if they might not even know they have carpenter ants, or they don't know the roof is leaking because it hasn't actually hit all the way down into the house. It's actually in the attic, and they never know they have mold, almost never. So the fact is, there's a lot of things that you're not going to know about. It's all good. I'm going to help you get through it all, but just know that it's like anything, right? This is what we're going to find out. And sometimes that's why sellers do a pre-inspection to kind of have an idea and take care of things ahead of time.
Right. And that can be a controversial discussion as well.
Yeah,
right?
I think people go back and forth between whether a pre-inspection is good or bad. I think what's most important, and Lorna alluded to this, like when you're having that conversation with your seller, one of the most important reasons we want at the listing appointment to do a lap by ourselves is because we can identify things that we consider condition issues. And then I'm going to come back and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Lindsay, I noticed I've got about 10 things that I've seen. And they're like, oh, we think we have about 7 things. Well, hopefully their 7 fit into my 10, and then we can arm wrestle about the other 3. What's important is, what are we willing to address? And things that we aren't willing to address, we can go get local quotes, and we can factor that into our pricing. That's important language, because what's going to happen invariably, I'm sure Deb's had this happen, Bovie's had this happen, Lorna's had this happen, and some of you in the class have had this happen. You're standing at the first showing. You're the list agent, buyer's agent with their client is standing there, and you're walking around, and everybody addresses and looks at the roof and says, wow, you need to mow the roof. Like the roof has a 25-year life design, and it's 24 years and 6 months. And it looks like a house in the Shire, right? Like the roof needs to be mowed, although it may be fine. And we have a roof company come out. We decide we don't want to deal with that. We got a local quote for it. I need to be able to turn to the buyer's agent when that comes up, because what will typically happen is they're good with it. And they're like, okay, yeah, just a little bit of moss. We'll get it cleaned later. Then when the home inspector shows up, because this guy suddenly has a flashlight and a tape measure, and he's like, oh, the roof is screwed. You needed to way back at the first showing say, yes, we had the Lindsays understand the roof is at the end of its life design. And we got some local quotes and we factored that into our pricing. And that's powerful to say because you want to make sure that they're not coming back after the second showing and the home inspection with a $50,000 change in their offer because they feel the roof needs to be addressed and you provided no information ahead of time. Life design, real important with the furnace too. And make sure you do talk to other agents in your office. Find those 3 inspectors that are really good, really thorough and not alarmists, because you don't ever want to tell people who to work with. You want a list of people that they could look into. We want them to pick their home inspector for the most part because it pulls liability off our plate. Although we want to let them know, hey, we've got clients that have really enjoyed working with these 3 people. And sometimes they'll turn to you and be like, well, can you book it for us? Yeah, I'm happy to. Who do you want? So they're picking the company and the individual, and then we can call and set that up. And even that can get hairy too, because we want them to decide that they're going to do water radon, air radon, which is really prevalent up here in New Hampshire, and all the other things, and just make them aware of their opportunities, their due diligence. Moving back to if somebody's coming in for radon mitigation or mold remediation, we want to make sure for sure that we're getting all of these people in the building to have these conversations and view the property in the window in which we're supposed to be doing our inspection due diligence. These can't start falling outside of that window. If you do, you can be doing it for informational purposes, but you've missed the window to bring it back to the table to negotiate against it to move forward. So important things to consider, especially in this current market where things are moving quickly and people are booked out.
Absolutely. So I think as real estate professionals, again, we're not licensed contractors, we're not licensed electricians, we're not licensed plumbers, heating. We don't have any of that licensee, but we do have a brain. And what we do want to do is walk around the house, and there are some very common things that we might want to check. And it is obviously the roof. We must learn as we go forward. Go home to your own house, go outside and look at your roof. What does it look like? And then drive around, and then we want to make sure if you go into the basement, this in the heating system is rusted and leaking all over the place. That's an area of concern. So start to develop your sense of homes in the product. We have 3 things. We have the product, we have the process, and then we have the promotional of it, So part of you as a newer agent, you must understand what different kind of heating systems are, and that's, that's a home basics class that you want to go to your own home. Do you literally some people don't know what kind of heat they have, or, you don't want to be messing around with your electrical panel, but, you need to recognize a 100 amp or 200 amp. Make sure that you have, as you're learning, you're shadowing people, always ask if somebody has an open home inspection. Jen, maybe when that house sells, you say, hey, can I go to the home inspection and shadow? That might be cool. I know it's not your listing, you're covering for someone. And then you're just, you're in training or whatever you call it, and you're just observing. You're just there to observe and learn. And then you'll hear what the home inspector says. You can see how the buyers are responding. Is it really stressing them out? And the other thing in terms of preparation we talked about on the home inspection, in terms of a buyer consultation, the very first thing you say when you have a home, then you're saying that they're scheduling their home inspection, you're going to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Lindsay, you just fell in love with this house. You're going to have a home inspection. I'm going to tell you this right now. He's there, he or she is there to sort of rain on your parade. They're gonna, they're gonna make, you fell in love with the house, and they're gonna start poking around with a 4-foot poker stick thing, and they're gonna have a flashlight and a ladder, and they're gonna go through that house from head to toe, and they're gonna find all kinds of little things, and you're gonna start to get creepy feeling. You're gonna go, oh my God, this house is really tough. Houses are living, breathing things, and they have to be managed and maintained, as we know. So be prepared for that little feeling. So when they're walking around, and they start to feel, because we've been there, this poker stick, man, that is freaky. And it sounds bad, but we know when it hits hard, it's good. But if but when you have that preliminary little discussion before the home inspection, when those feelings come up, they're going to go, okay, no, this is the thing. Deb said, we're going to feel this way. She's cool. She doesn't seem to be panicking. We're going to listen. We're going to learn. And then we're going to identify the things that we're really deep down in our heart and soul concerned about.
Evan, can I just add on that, just in case you don't know what the big poker stick is, they take like a screwdriver that's like this long. I can't even make it that long on my screen. And they go in and they poke at the sills of the house. And if it goes boom, boom, that means no rot. If it goes and like soft, that means there's an issue. So we like when we hear bang, bang, bang. So just to clarify what you were talking about, in case you haven't been to a home inspection yet, that's what Deb was talking about.
Right. Yes, go ahead.
I have a question. So I'm in a real situation right now, and I'm an experienced agent. I'm on my 20th year. I'm writing up an offer today on a very large estate property in rural Maine. And the interesting part about it is my client is a very well-known, very well-renowned post and beam professional. And as we were looking at one of the barns on this property, we weren't having an official inspection because he didn't want an inspector, because he probably knows more than any inspector I could probably hand his way. So as we were at our second showing, not an official inspection, he put his hand under the sill of the barn and it disintegrated in his hand. So my question is, it doesn't scare him because he can take care of that work. However, when I'm presenting the offer today, I'm trying to figure out the best way to go about presenting the offer, taking into account the information he gathered during his second walkthrough, or his second, look at the property. Two questions. Will that agent, the other agent, the listing agent, if this does not go through, will that agent and or that seller have to disclose to a buyer coming forth later, if this doesn't come together, that sill is obviously rotted? And also there's live carpenter ants all through the barn. And none of this was disclosed in the original disclosures, and it's pretty evident now. So that my first question is, will that help me from a negotiation standpoint, that will now have to be disclosed going forward, or because it wasn't an official inspection, they would not? And my second question is, what would be the best way to handle that on the presentation of the offer?
Okay, we've got a lot of I have
This is
a lot of
real
questions
thing right now.
No, well, first of all, let's go back to the basics. First of all, is the house priced correctly?
It's strong.
You mean it's high?
It's a little strong, yes.
Okay, and so is there a lot of offers on the property? Is it multiple offer situations?
It is not. In fact, she told me that an offer came in 2 weeks ago, which I thought was a very good offer, and we're going to be going a little above that, and they declined it out of hand, but that was before this knowledge. They had not there was no home inspection as of yet.
And you don't know why that first deal didn't go through?
They would not even consider the offer.
Oh, so they just rejected the offer, so the offer must have come in low? Or we don't know.
She told me what it came in at, which was, well off the asking price.
All right. But you thought it was a good price. So you're trying to determine, how do I take this knowledge and come in low without insulting them?
Yes. Not low, but I don't want, it's the type of situation where this estate has been in the family for many, many, many years, and there's a lot of emotion attached to it, into selling it. So I mean, that's a big factor too. And I don't want to present the offer and say, well, this is why, and insult them off the bat.
So, but you are coming in lower than the asking price, correct?
Yes, yes.
Well, then that's what you're doing. I mean, you're coming in low based upon his preliminary review of the property, and he feels now, I don't know if he's a licensed pest person to know whether there's live carpenter ants. Obviously he sounds like he knows what he's doing, and he's probably right. but he doesn't have, you know, it wasn't, if I would make, I mean, I'd love the other coaches to chime in. Obviously, you're going to make your offer. You're going to make the best good faith offer that you can on that property with all of the following terms and conditions that are going to be agreeable to the seller. And I don't know if there's anything special you can do because you have that knowledge. What does everybody else think?
I think any knowledge that's been brought forth about an issue with the property after going under agreement and going back on, a well-versed buyer's agent is going to say, hey, so why did that, you know, how did that fall apart? What was the reason you're coming back on the market? They have knowledge now, whether it was a professional inspection or not, they have knowledge there is an issue. So it should be getting addressed, and that's in a perfect world where there's no inspection report. There's nothing from a professional licensed inspector or pest, you know, pest professional that says we found this and that's the case. It's a gray area because, you know, it's his word and his feeling about the property. Although at the same time, when you can actually see with the naked eye that there's
and part of it is you put your
repair.
hand under the sill and the wood just fell out in your hand and it's now on the ground. It's obvious.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess and we can continue to mastermind on it. My feeling is, and I always just go back to the basics, you know, price and terms. You know, I would go in with what is going to be the best good faith offer that they can make. If they are not going to do a home inspection, which it sounds like he's not going to, then they're going to take on this. Right, and if he's going to take on that problem for this price, you could certainly say, here's my, I don't know what the price of the house is. Here is my offer. Here's the, I don't know if he's cash or he's doing finance. Here's our pre-qual. Here's all our supporting documentation, and would like to close here or there. And I guess you wait. Do we wait for the counter that says, you know, no, we don't like your offer, it's too low? And then do you go, well, we found it is a gray area. And obviously, if the deal doesn't go through, this listing agent needs to get somebody over there and check that stuff out. It goes back to the pre-inspection thing. If you don't know, you don't have to disclose. If you know, now you have to disclose and fix, or disclose and not fix, and, you know, make the adjustment on the price. So you could say, we have formulated this price based upon, you know, his, you know, observations out there, and just let the process work and see how they're going to negotiate. What does everybody else think?
Yeah, I was just going to chime in real quick. Michelle is with us at Market Center 463. So, Michelle, do reach out to Jen Vashon, our managing broker, and just get her final ruling on this.
Yeah.
Okay. Because she's, you know, again, and that's why our managing brokers and our operating principals and team leaders and coaches are having this conversation more than your friend who's an agent who does a lot of business. So, you know, please go to the well that sees the most water and get their input. And again, at the same time, if you end up going down the wrong road, they're going to be the person that comes to your defense. So it's best that you go in with some of the intel they provide for you, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's the point blank question that I'm a little gray on, which is, it is obvious now. It may not have been before because no one poked at it, but it is obvious now that all the material has fallen out from under the barn. Will that agent and that seller have to disclose that to another potential buyer? And that should, in my feeling, should be a yes or no. I don't see gray there. My answer would be yes, but could they come back and say, well, it wasn't an official inspection?
Well, I guess my question is, are you posing this as if you don't get the deal? Are you concerned about what they're going to do going forward? Michelle, is that what you're concerned?
I'm thinking, it's a two-part thing for me. I think I'm just going to present the offer as it is and wait for them to come back, because I don't want to start off with something negative. So my experience tells me to present the offer because it's not a bad offer at all. See how they respond. If they reject it out of pocket, then go into the explanation of why and see where that goes. Then there's the follow-on. Can I say to that agent, well, now that we've discovered this, as you know, you'll have to disclose this to another potential buyer, and it is going to be a liability? Or am I out of line by saying that?
You're out of line.
Yeah, I think I might go back to Tim's recommendation on this particular one. You know, that's going to be a discussion. You're going to have now you're going to get into an argument with the listing agent. She's going to go, no, I don't have to do that because it wasn't a real inspection. And you're going to go, well, he found it, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, your client is or is not going to get this property. And if he's not going to get the property, then you really don't care what they do going forward I would think. So I would focus on getting the offer. I would focus on making a good deal, presenting a really strong offer, adjusting for what you think, or write up an offer with a home inspection contingency. Doesn't sound like they have anybody else in the table. So, you know, and then do that whole scene where you do the home inspection and now you've got this fabulous thing in writing and then you can now negotiate.
No, I see.
So-
I see what you're saying, but the whole strength of this offer is there will be no inspections on a very large property with many. I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but with multiple buildings. So the appeal to the seller really is
absolutely it's the no home inspection. So don't have say no home inspection, but I found something at my non-home inspection. You either go in and say there's no home inspection. Here's the price, and that's what we want to do.
Right.
You can't have both. You can't say we're not doing a home inspection, but by the way, there's this.
Yeah, to Deb's point, this is almost like you're going in on an REO, and a lot of times when we have young couples who watch too much HGTV and they want to go in on a foreclosure, like we want a great deal, we're going to get this house for $10. Well, in the grand scheme of things, I would always recommend to any person that you know in your heart of hearts, you'll probably be buying a traditional, conventional piece of real estate, and they want to grab that foreclosure, that REO property, and they're going to fix it up later because their Uncle Steve has a hammer and a dream. That usually goes horribly wrong, and they're not going to be able to just move in and live and love and laugh. So I always recommend, hey, we should conduct a home inspection ahead of time for our informational purposes, so we know what financial endeavors we're taking on. That's not going to affect the buyer or seller. And that's sort of what Deb is saying here. Like if you're doing that, you could just say, you know, we're doing it for informational purposes. We're not going to do it after the fact, but we are going to approach you with a deal based on the information that we've obtained. And we did find, you know, a dead body and some rotting sill. So we'd like to talk about that, you know, and factor it into our offer, you know.
Yeah, so that's a tricky one. Keep us posted. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Why not just ask for the pest inspection, not the full inspection, just for the pest with the offer?
Because we don't
have done that anymore.
Well, number one, he doesn't want to pay for that because it's obvious he is a professional, and number two, the biggest appeal of his.
That's the only way. That's the only way you're gonna have your foot in.
Sounds to me like he wants to come in strong with no home inspection, and there's a lot of value in that as a listing agent. They're going to go,
especially in this property, because it is, like I said, it is an estate. It is huge, and there are many, many, many problems, and he's okay with it because of what he does for a living. So
so then you just write up your offer and determine how it's going to go. Is it a hot potato thing, a goodbye, or nibbling? Sounds to me like a solid offer, well written, well documented, with you know.
I
and
think
then see how it goes.
Sorry, Deb. I was going to say,
no, go ahead, Lana.
The strengths of your buyer. I mean, that's really it, right? He's not doing inspection. He's aware that he's looked around the property and, you know, noticed a few things that might be an inspection issue. He's fine with it. He's buying it as is.
Yep.
And ready to move forward. And I think that's, to Deb's point, just really play on the strengths of him.
So let me interject one more interesting thing. If you said there was an offer on it before that was rejected.
Correct.
Now, I don't want to get too much into detail. Is your offer going to be higher or lower than that one?
Oh, higher.
Okay, good. I'm wondering if the first people came in low because they already did do a home inspection thingy without the listing agent knowing.
Yeah, could be.
So anyway, so that sounds like a good one. Let's put in a really solid offer and let us know Monday that you have it accepted. Sounds like a great property for somebody. Yeah, sounds good. Any other scenarios we want to kind of go through?
I have one question. what happens if a buyer, after a home inspection, he found out something big and he still wants to continue in the deal?
Yeah.
But is there a possibility that a lender can back off and saying no because of that big issue that they found out in the house?
Well, I'll speak to that. I'll start. It depends on the buyer's financing. And if they have a particular loan that they're coming in with a very low deposit, which there are certain type of loans, you've heard it batted around through Ignite, a FHA loan particularly. If there's something wrong with the house and they're only putting this much down and there's something big wrong with the house, the philosophy of the FHA program, we're going to let you buy this house. You don't make a lot of money. We're going to let you buy this house with a little bit of money, but we're going to perceive that if there's a big problem, you're not going to be able to handle it. Therefore, you're not going to protect our investment. So it really very much depends on the type of loan that the bank does an appraisal. They don't do an inspection. Okay, there's two different words there. But the FHA loan, I think it's safe to say they do some of an inspection. They need to make sure that the house is within fixable range for these particular buyers. If there's peeling paint, can be very, very problematic because, as we know, right before rotting wood is peeling paint. If there's broken windows, that can be dangerous for children. If there's big holes or no railings and all of those kind of safety issues that a 6-year-old is going to be, it's going to be a dangerous home to live in, then the bank is going to have a problem. But if it's regular conventional financing, the bank is just doing a appraisal. Okay. And unless it's something really dramatically terrible, the appraisal may come back and say, this house is worth this much less because this is bad. So you have to watch those inspections and how it's going to reflect your buyer's decision on moving forward.
Okay, great.
And just as a side note, please remind your buyers, they don't need to tell their loan officer what happened at the home inspection.
Yeah.
Zip it.
Right.
True.
So did we answer that for you?
Yes, thank you, Deborah. Thank you.
Are you working on a deal now that there's a home inspection issue?
No, not that. It's just that it came to my mind that it means if we are in the deal, and is there a possibility that lender would back off, not the buyer?
Only if the condition is so dramatic that it's really dropping the value of the home. It's really more of a value question than a inspection, at that point. But, unless it's really dramatic, the values right now are fairly strong based on all the comparable sales. So,
thank you.
So I think we've talked a little bit. Where am I going? Where am I on the program here? So we've talked about, so let me just back up a little bit. So we've talked about some practical items. I feel like we're a little bit ahead of schedule here. We've talked about, going back to this piece here. Where is it? Being prepared. Hold on. We've presented our offer, right? Where is this thing? We've presented the offer and we're positioning ourselves to move forward and put a deal together. I know next week there's the other class, which is super interesting, and make sure you go to. That's called, it's really chunking into what happens from the offers accepted to closing. So all of this preparation and presentation and positioning is going to help you with issues as we move forward. So as we move along here, I'm trying to move my screen. We've talked a little bit about counter tactics and how every deal is different. Any other questions at this point? Anything in the chat? Are we good? All right, so let's talk a little bit. I don't know if Jen's still here, if she wants to chime in. So let's put it out to the group a little bit.
I think
As
Lorna
we-
was saying something, but she was muted.
Okay, Lorna,
Yes, I
you're
was.
muted.
Thank you, Tim. In the chat, it just says there are certain things that come into play with VA loans. And that's similar to FHA, right? They have a different type of appraisal and they do look for different types of things. So
yeah.
The other thing I was going to mention, Deb, is that we have scripts, and so we're not early. We have script time and we have lead gen time. So everybody stays on and does that all together. So we're right on schedule.
I'm going to let you spearhead that a little bit, if you don't mind, but let's go through, not spearhead, but, help me with that. So first of all, guys, how has your thinking changed? What ideas or mindsets were new? Can we have some feedback on that? When we're talking about negotiations, what have you learned today that has changed your thinking going forward? Anybody have any comments on that?
Hi, Suzette. For me, definitely a big eye opener for me is setting the expectation when I sit with both my buyer and seller in terms of obviously negotiation and asking the right question, finding out their comfort level in terms of how much more would they be willing to spend. Talking about I forgot the form that we talked about already. But again, for me, it's a matter of, having those conversations when I'm sitting with them before we actually submit an offer or accept an offer. So thank you guys.
So having a really good buyer needs analysis or buyer or seller needs analysis, and really a consultation to understand where everyone's head's at and make sure we're all on the same page. And that'll also combat that good guy, bad guy thing. So what do you feel differently about? What was meaningful to you today? Give me another aha. What was really another meaningful thing today?
May I?
Yeah, absolutely.
So to me, it was all about escalation clause.
Okay.
That was really very, very important. It is very important, and it's a terrific tool to use, of course, only if appropriate.
Right. And I think everybody should make sure they speak to somebody within their market center that can direct them to the form, whether it's in your broker forms or your board forms. Usually there is one somewhere to locate and make sure you understand, like every single form you're doing, you understand every single thing that you're saying. And also you might need to convey it to the listing agent. Sometimes the listing agents don't have a lot of experience with escalation clauses. I don't know, Lorna, if or Tim or anybody, have you seen that piece where listing agents are kind of a little bit like, don't get them, don't understand them?
I haven't found that they don't understand. Some just don't like them.
Yeah, they don't like them. If you're going to come in 15 high, then come in 15 high, and they feel used a little bit. I think I like them on both sides. So, I don't know, but everybody's, we're all people. We have our own style. We have our own way of doing our business.
You bring up a great point, because if obviously everybody on this call is wicked smart now and they know what an escalation clause is. If anything ever gets sent over to you and you don't know what it is, not because your ego is getting in the way, you've always got time to turn to the agent next to you or somebody in your market center and be like, what the hell is this? So you're not going back across the table and saying, what the hell is this?
Right.
So if anything ever pops up that gets sent to you that you don't understand, rather than going back to the other agent and lessening their confidence in you, turn to somebody in the market center and raise your hand and ask the question about, hey, how do I approach this? And when you've gotten this, and again, designated agency, we can't share numbers and addresses and names. You can give them the general idea of what you received or show them the form with stuff covered up. But ask for help on our side of the fence, so you're not going back to the other agent and saying, I don't know what you're sending me, because that's only going to lower confidence. We didn't really touch on this much today. We talked about good cop, bad cop within like our client side. And we'll probably talk more about it next week too. Please, Nathan Dickey hounds on this all the time. And it's so true. When things start to get contentious, and in a lot of deals, things do, people's emotions get, raised up and people get worked up. You never at any point want to lessen the confidence in your client for the other agent. When something gets a little clunky early on or right away, even if you've got a preconceived notion about this agent, you've never done a deal with them, be like, oh, this ought to be fun. I hear this guy's a jackalope. That's the last thing you want to do, because later on you might be going to your clients with goodwill and being like, Steve's a really nice guy. Well, like Tim, 3 weeks ago, you said he was a jackalope. Now you're telling us he's awesome. So no matter what our feelings are about the other professional involved in the deal, we want to make sure we keep that on the up and up. And we're always handing goodwill around to everybody, because we might have to buy into that at some point and ask for some grace from our buyers or our sellers about the other agent to make it a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that 1000%. And we see that a lot. And we hear it. You'll hear it in the kitchen. Oh, that person is the worst and this one's the worst. And then people start conveying that to their clients, or even saying things about the buyer. This person's not good to work with, and they're not don't pull any of that stuff. Never forward any emails. People can be very sloppy. They'll forward emails that has some wording in it that may not be appropriate for the other party to hear. Always raise your level up. And I don't like when I hear, oh, this person's hard to work with and that one's a this and whatever. It's not architecturally pertinent to the home, is I always go back to. And you're going to need this person. So you start off on Nastyville, you're never going back. Go ahead, Tim. You're dying to say something, I can tell.
I was just going to say, I love that you brought that up, only for the fact about, make sure we're very clean and concise and not sloppy with our digital communication. I know Bovie and Lorna and you would all agree there's a massive difference, and a massive weight will fall on top of your career if you cannot make the delineation between reply and reply all. Your email could suddenly become water cooler conversation at the brokerage across the street if you're not careful about what you're sending around. And I guarantee between this conversation and the end of your career, you're going to hear a story. Don't be one of the main characters in the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is learning and at Keller Williams, and it's not many offices, you always want to run in a very high level of integrity. And we've all seen it. And it's just, you guys are new, or if you've been around a long time, let's just do everything the same and make sure you're doing everything at a high level.
Yeah. Don't push send on an email or a text that you would never say to their face.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't share things about other people. All right. How will your behaviors be different going forward? What actions will you take going forward? Give me some actions. Everybody pop in. Tell me what actions you're going to do. Let me hear them.
I'm going to come up with my list of 3 inspectors, lenders, and start putting together my team so that I can incorporate that into my buyer consultation package.
Love it. Perfect, Linda. What else? Who's doing what action?
I will be looking for permission from the buyer to talk to their lender.
Yep, absolutely. Who else? Action items.
I liked preparing the buyer for what might happen during the inspection, the creepy feelings, and and just preparing, both when you're working with a seller or with a buyer, just preparing them for scenarios.
And Emma, I know your buyer that you're talking about, and they need to know you need that conversation with them, that you're going to feel icky when they start poking around that house. And because, if you have somebody that's, all by herself and she's going to feel a little nervous about things, that's going to be a very strong conversation to have with her. So I like that. Any other actions?
Yeah, I love that. And I always say it's like dating. When you see the house, you're in love, just like the first couple dates of somebody, and then the sunglasses come off. And you find out who they really are, and you dig a little deeper, and then you decide whether you still like them or don't like them.
Yeah, is it going to work or not? Absolutely.
And nowadays it's when the mask comes off and you see that they have no teeth.
All right. So what tools, models, or systems will you definitely use, and how will that make you accountable? So where are you putting all of this information? Are you putting it in command? Are you keeping your notes? How are you, make sure your systems are in place too to work effectively and consistently as you move forward. Right? Anything else? Any other ahas that we need to discuss?
I like that we should make sure that we are on one team, like husband and wife, they should be on one team, then we can proceed. Otherwise, it gets difficult. It's time consuming otherwise.
Yeah, and you just, they need to be on the same team. Linda, you had a comment, it looked like? Nope.
I was just chuckling because I agreed with her.
Yeah. All right, good. So Lorna, how do you go forward in doing our scripting? What's the protocol here? I apologize for not knowing.
That's okay. So on your screen at the bottom should be a way to do breakout rooms, unless Jen is the only one who can do that. Do you see breakout rooms in the bottom?
I think breakout might only be on Jen's dashboard. So
yeah,
if that's the case, and Bovie might be super busy with the rest of the region.
Oh, she's here. Hold on. Let me,
Mom,
do I want to
Mom's
stop
here.
screen
Everybody sit
share?
up straight.
Do I stop screen share right now, Jen?
Sure.
Good. We'll let Jen come in and take. All right, good.
Okay, so we're going to break out into the breakout rooms. How many? About 5 to 6 per room?
Sure.
All
How
right.
many? We have 100 people. Yeah.
All
right. Yeah, we get 64 and it's going, it's dropping like the stock exchange right now.
Oh,
so
of course,
careful.
because it's scripts.
We got to put a lock on this thing. Like, listen, people, this is where it's at.
This is the gold in the class.
It's Friday. It's almost 4:50 wine. You guys can have a cocktail later. Let's call some humans so we can afford more wine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So before I break everybody off into the room, I just want to remind you guys, we only have 3 days left of Ignite. Wednesday is our final day. And Monday is a special impromptu script off. I'm hoping that some of my coaches could jump on with me at 1 o'clock and help with that script off. 1 o'clock on Monday. I'll put the Zoom link in the chat shortly, but would love to have you break off into groups. Anything else before I break them off, guys? How long do we do this for?
Are we going? I thought we were going one extra day because we had to move the open house class.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah, we
Wednesday.
got Thursday. Is it Wednesday? Or is it Wednesday?
It was supposed to, I believe, and I could be wrong, guys. I believe that we were supposed to be done on Tuesday. We pushed it to Wednesday.
Okay.
Oh, right. You're right. It was Tuesday. Okay. All right.
guys.
And do we?
Any
and do we
questions?
know what? Well, we have somebody here saying which script. What are we discussing? Where are we? I'm sorry. I'm being a dope.
Let's just run. Somebody can be the list agent. Somebody can be the buyer's agent, and you're calling back with issues that you found during inspection.
Okay. Good idea. Yep. We will do that. Okay. And Jen, you're putting people in these rooms?
See? Very shortly.
Very good. I don't know how to do that. I need to learn.
It's going to be fun. Stop leaving. Everybody's leaving.
Yes. Look at quick. Get them in. Okay. So I'm joining.
Welcome back, guys.
That was fun.
Who said that was fun?
Lorna.
I said it was fun.
It was fun.
Yes, it was fun.
That was fun.
Give me some fun ahas.
Oh my God, we're down to 38.
Oh.
The few, the proud, the survivors of negotiation role play.
Hey, you know, look you have to learn your words, you know? There's no way around it. You can learn them now or you can learn them later.
One of my ahas was nice because I was with Deborah, and she just kind of validated, you know, use your common sense that you have when you're kind of hearing. I was the listing agent and she was the buyer's agent, and you know, some things kind of sounded funny, so she was just validating that use your own common sense when you're listening to say a home inspection and something that they would want fixed.
The buyer wanted $10,000 for a bulkhead, and she said, I don't know, but that just sounds high. And I said, you know, I don't know if it's high or not, but
A
you
wicked nice
sometimes have to-
bulkhead. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, and then of course she said, well, where'd you get that price? Which was smart, you know, so it was a good script.
Great. What other ahas did we get from our breakout rooms?
This is Ronnie. I was the seller's listing agent, and I was, geez, I can't remember who was on the call with me as the buyer.
Emma.
Buyer's agent. But basically they came back to me with a home inspection showing that there was water and mold in the house. But my consideration would be for them to send over a document that asked them if they had a professional look at it, which they said they had a certified person look at it, and they had an estimate of $18,000. So I asked them to send the documentation over, and I would just present this and discuss it with the seller. My discussion with the seller, the suggestion was that we split the difference of the $18,000. So I made it.
That's mold.
And I guess they don't want to lose the deal because then they have to start all over again. And they would have to disclose the inspection with any other buyer that comes along. So they had the financing. We want to make sure that the lender is on track with having the repairs done after the sale. So there were a couple of items that were still outstanding, but my counter offer was to split the difference. I think that'll work.
Split the difference between seller and buyer?
Yes.
Hmm.
Well, they have mold. They have water. It will have to be remediated either before or after the sale. They have a home inspection, and if that piece of it blows up the deal, then they have to disclose it to the next person that comes along.
But if I was a buyer, I would not want to pay half of it because you know, I'm buying it. I would not want to pay for it. It's a problem, and then you're right. They will have to disclose it going further, and I'm not paying for it.
Well, they really like the house. They have the financing. They want to move forward. Any other opinions?
That's what negotiating is. If the buyer is comfortable with moving forward and the seller is comfortable with paying half, then that's cool. 18,000, that's some mold, man.
Yes, it is. But it needs to be documented.
So, you know, it's just part of the negotiation, what's comfortable for everyone. Some
Beneath his
people-
listing, it was exquisite mold. You should have seen it.
Right.
I mean, you know, what do you guys think? I mean, it depends on your buyer's position and your seller's position. Absolutely. Any other good takeaways? Mold, bulkheads, what else do we have for negotiatings?
Terms.
I had someone try to get a whole new heating system out of me.
Okay, how did that go? Let's hear that.
Suzette, you there?
I'm here.
Suzette come in and said that she wanted 10,000, well, I forget, did you say the amount? He wanted a whole new heating system because the inspector said it was on its, the end of its useful life.
Yeah.
And I counted.
It's already
and said-
past the useful life.
Right, whatever that
Mhm.
happens to be in a heating system. And I counted that it had been serviced every year by an HVAC person. And it had never been told to the owner that it was needed to be replaced. So I just told her that I didn't think it was going to fly and that I would take it back to the seller and see what he had to say. Because it was functioning.
So how did it end?
It's probably going to go back on, it'll go back on the market, but I believe the buyer was walking away.
Not officially.
not
I
officially.
actually we actually try to counter offer by mentioning, well, we offer an extra 5,000 on the asking price, of course, with the mindset that everything was fine with the house. So I told the listing agent that, of course, I will communicate with the buyer and see. That was, of course, I don't know if that's something that we should do, but it's part of, was trying to use some tactics here and say, you know, I'll see if my buyer would want to continue with the sale. Of course, if the seller is not willing to replace the HVAC system. So we didn't come to a resolution because we have to go back to our respective client.
Right. I said to her that the buyer offered $5,000 over asking prior to an inspection because she thought the house was worth it. Now she was asking for a $10,000 reduction or just a replacement of the HVAC system.
Well,
and, I'm sorry?
Interesting that all came up because if to your point, Jim, and you know, this was always beaten into me, if you can have your buyers, and if your buyers are really smart about it, if I'm getting my central air system serviced every 12 months, I'm leaving on all the old receipts. I'm leaving on that history of service. So when it gets to the 26th year of a 25-year life design, and this speaks to the kind of people that you bring in to do your home inspections. Again, we want to make sure that we're finding people that aren't alarmists. For a home inspector to turn around and say, well, it's 25-year life design. You're in your 26th year. It's been serviced consistently, and she's running like a top. And a great inspector is going to say, so you should be budgeting for a future replacement because at this point, who knows? Not like,
Right.
oh, this thing's going to die tomorrow. I mean, we tend to forget like our washers and dryers are personal property that everyone seems to leave behind. And how often have you had a buyer that bought the house and 6 months later you get a call, the dryer died? Okay, you own it now. Like, you know, anything could go tomorrow. Life design is a Overton's window of when this thing might go. If it's been serviced and it's still running, you know, I would side with Jim on that. And I think the buyers probably could have been educated better by their agent. And, you know, it's about us being better representations of the marketplace.
Yeah, you have to make sure those service tags are left on the HVAC units.
Yes. Never take off the old one. Like, oh, I don't want, these old ones are just taking up space. I mean, don't
Yeah,
have them
stack
hanging
'em up.
near the flame, but keep them nearby for sure, you know?
Right.
So I have a question. May I?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I was a seller's agent and I said to the buyer's agent, okay, my sellers are accepting your offer. We're going to move forward. We're going to close on whatever date, but my sellers would like to stay 3 more weeks in the house before they move out to their new house. So does that, and we didn't finish because we ran out of time. Does that mean that, okay, and the sellers, let's say, I said to them, the sellers will pay a little bit of a rent for the 3 weeks. But as from the lender point of view, would that not turn into sort of like investment property even if it's just 3 weeks?
It does not turn into investment property if it's just for 3 weeks with a rent back. Is that your question?
It's a purchase with the rent back. And
Okay.
it's
It's a
new
rent back.
documentation, and speak to your local office about that.
Yeah, and your attorney, and the attorney can handle that. They're not established in tenancy, they're just using and occupying the property.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
which might have been remedied by a prior suitable housing clause, which we should all be well versed on by the time we finish this class.
Yeah, yeah.
Not today, but next week.
Right, right. All right, cool. What else? Anybody come up with anything? Again, no matter what discussion we're talking about, it's what the seller and the buyer are going to agree to.
I just wanted to pipe in for 1 minute because, a lot of the conversations in our negotiating that we're talking about right now is for the right now market. Here's the thing, as soon as this market shifts, these negotiating strategies and tactics and conversations, guess what? They change.
Absolutely.
So when a buyer is making an offer and you're representing the buyer, I put in there my mantra, whatever you want to call it, be proactive. Like that is one of the most important things for you to work on with your buyer. If you're looking at properties, be as proactive as you can with the disclosures. If you know that the heating system is 25 years old, the conversation I would have before I even walk into that property is making sure that they're aware of that. Because if that's something that they're not prepared to look at in the next year, 2, 3, or 4, then maybe that's not the property that they want to make an offer on. So instead of waiting until inspection period to find out that same information, that it's still 25 years old, and then have to say, oh, I'm not prepared for it. Be a little proactive as the buyer's associate, or buyer's representative, and give them that information ahead of time. Now, here's the thing. When this market shifts, buyers are going to have more leniency on a lot of these things and requesting repairs. Right now, we're all in the same market, I believe, throughout New England, where sellers know it's a seller's market and they have buyers lined up right behind your buyer. So how do you be as proactive as you can with that information?
Right, and that's what I threw back at my scripting with Jen when her people wanted the 10 grand, and I said to her, well, we can get a follow-up quote and so forth, but by the way, I have 14 people that have called me that want to take a look at the property. So unfortunately right now the buyers can't get too cute. So she has to go back and say, guys, remember the end. You wanted this beautiful home. Yeah, we've got some water coming in. Let's have somebody come over and take a peek at it. Is this a deal breaker for you? Unfortunately, the buyers have to take a hit on this stuff now. Again, it's really hard, but yeah, you're right, Jen, man. When this market turns, it's going to be a whole different story, and we're just not sure when that's going to happen. And yeah,
and I did put in the chat section about home warranty, and I put it there for 2 reasons. 1, to suggest it, and 2, to remind myself to talk to you guys about it. I'm not sure if you guys do any kind of closing gifts, like a bottle of wine, a gift card, or anything like that. One of my things that I always did for my clients, and this is just a suggestion, you do not have to take my suggestions, is that I would offer my clients one of 2 things. And it was either a cleaning of the property the day of the closing, because in Rhode Island, the contract reads that the property has to be in broom swept clean condition. And my broom swept clean condition to somebody else's broom swept clean condition is 2 totally different conditions. So instead of guessing what kind of condition that is, I tell them that ahead of time. So I'm as proactive as I can. And I say, just so you know, and I tell them exact thing what I just told you. So I want to, as a gift to you, I would like to offer you a cleaning service for your property the day of the closing, which I will set up for you. Or I will provide a 1-year home warranty for your property that you could continue on after that year. And what that does is it'll cover for if the dishwasher goes or whatever the case, the coverage will cover. I will go over that with them. It's about a $450, $500 investment for myself. Yet for tax purposes, it's a better option for me to pay for one of those services rather than a gift. So you could look into that with your own accountant. But I'll tell you, it's $25 you could write off for a gift as a total, which I believe is still the same. So if you do a service or marketing, it's different for a write-off. So that's why I do it, on top of they remember that. So the warranty goes a long way, by the way. So just wanted to mention that really quickly.
agreed. I like it. I want to buy a house from you. I want it clean the day I move in. Can you clean mine when I go? You do that too?
Jen, can I just ask you, if a home's listed on MLS as is, Does that cover the property itself and the land, or is it just the property and anything, the improvements built on the land?
So I need to learn a little bit more about that. So when you say listed as is, what that basically is telling me in Rhode Island, again, I can't speak for every state on here, is that if you're having an inspection, they're not going to do any repairs. That doesn't mean, I don't know what else you think it means. So what specifically are you asking me?
Essentially, I guess, yeah, if there was any issues with the house itself that needed to be repaired, would as is essentially cover any liability from the seller, the seller's agent? And additionally, a second part to that question, if there's a Title V done to the property and they find some type of, not infection, but some type of issue with the land itself and maybe a septic system break or something, would as is cover that as well, or is that also an issue with?
Great questions. I am not in Massachusetts yet. What I will tell you is, from my understanding, what all that means is the seller saying, I'm not going to do it. So then it's up to your buyer. And I can't talk on your contracts. I could speak very clearly in Rhode Island contracts. You still have the ability to back out if a septic does fail. Or if there is any issue, actually, they could still back out after a home inspection, even if it does say as is. And guys in Massachusetts or New Hampshire, you guys want to clarify that?
Bobby, I was just going to say, I can speak quickly and then probably get dope slapped by one of my Massachusetts people that I can see on here. Although it's just her picture, as cute as she is. Sue Doyle's here, so I don't know if she's muted or napping or both. But anyway, maybe she'll chime in. I can tell you this much, Giancarlo. I do believe when it says that they're not willing to do anything to improve the condition of the property as a whole, any kind of mechanics lien or financial lien against the property would have to get remedied by them. And that could happen by way of the transaction closing. It would just be less net to them if that were the case. And again, I'm waiting for Doyle to unmute and chime in, hopefully.
Lindsay,
There
what
she
is
is.
this
There she
napping
is.
situation?
Shocking picture.
Napping? Really?
No,
Thank
never, never. I don't
I
know.
love you.
Yep. She's our office Dexter. She's up late working usually. So yeah, go ahead.
I'm in the middle of a bit of a battle that has a noon deadline to fix totally.
Oh, good.
So,
So you've got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Kind of doing two things. In Mass, it's the same as is, unless coordinated or negotiated differently, is just the seller's not buyer. You have to take it as you see it and don't come to us to fix anything. Same in Maine and New Hampshire as well. But they do get negotiated out every now and then. So it's worth asking if it's something important.
Very good point, Sue. So what she's saying is, even though sometimes it says as is, that they don't always mean as is. So negotiate that. Yeah, good
And
point.
especially nowadays, if you've had 50 people inside your house and you're tired of picking it up, and all of a sudden the request is not huge, but something important to a buyer, ask. All they can say is no.
I would say as is typically is a lingo that says we're not going to fix anything. In Mass, if you have a failed Title V, a buyer can certainly buy the house, but not if he has a mortgage. Mortgage will not allow you to buy a house without a working Title V system or compliant Title V. Broom clean condition, if the house is a hot mess, you have to strike the language on the purchase and sale that says property will be in broom clean condition. In there, you're going to write property will be in the condition that you saw it, full of junk. And that can be a big thing. And we've gone through this with investors buying the property. I don't know what investor doesn't know that it's probably going to be junky when they buy it, but they're running around going, it says on the P&S, a broom clean condition. So that's a little thing that you have to keep an eye out for. Absolutely. But as is really, I think, I don't know, is more lingo saying we're not going to fix anything. Doesn't mean they won't fix a little something, but they're not going to be fixing a bunch of stuff. So watch your language at purchase and sale. Does it say as is? Does it say broom clean condition? It's right in there in one of the paragraphs.
Right, it is 12:01, so we are a minute later than we usually go. So enjoy the rest of your day, guys. If you do have any questions outside of this session, please reach out to Deb, Tim, Lorna, any one of our coaches, myself, and we're happy to help and assist with questions and direct you to the right leadership that you need to connect with to help you along the way. So never feel like you're alone in this. We're all here for you. And there's so many great negotiating tools, tactics, and scripts that we didn't even go over today. So continue learning, continue getting on scripts, and we'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you,
Just
Jen,
a
for
side
coming
note,
out.
your awesome
Thanks,
teacher
Lorna.
on Monday. Don't miss it.
Who's
All
our
right,
teacher?
goodbye.
Patty Sutherland. She's on our ALC and she is the financial, she calls it financials. So she
Ooh,
loves the
financials,
finances.
no such thing.
Sorry, you just lost half the people when you said that word. So forget it.
See you, Lorna.
Bye.
Take it easy. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for
Bye,
helping me
guys.
out, everybody.
Thank you,
Nice
everyone.
job, Deb.
Good job, Deb. Really good job. Excellent job.